The pure saint must wear black stockings all year round. Only then can she sense whether the people around her harbor impure thoughts. Whenever she meets someone with a pure heart, she casts a purification spell to heal their body. But when the saint used her power to cleanse Ceres of his poison, that pure heart of hers began to tremble with confusion. It all began when Ceres got caught in a battle between a beast and a hero. During the chaos, the hero's mysterious box was shattered. A foul stench burst out from within, and he collapsed on the spot. When he woke up, the doctor told him he'd been poisoned, with only 1 year left to live. But what the doctor didn't know was that a glowing system panel had appeared before him. Anyone marked by that system would have their deepest desires awakened. To find a way to survive, Ceres became the weakest of them all, an F-class hero. At first, he never planned to use such a filthy ability. But this time, the enemy was too beautiful, too strong. She had just crushed a D-class hero with her bare hands. We saw Queen Yog's stunning figure. He knew that if he didn't act, death was inevitable. His teammate Bella shouted, "Ceres, run. You're just an F-class hero. You don't need to die here. You haven't even started fighting, and your nose is already bleeding." But their voices caught Queen Yog's attention. A moment later, she led her beast army charging straight towards Ceres. She yelled that she'd use his head as a ball for the Demon King. Ceres whispered the incantation and activated the charm system. The target lock completed instantly, and Yog appeared right before him. As the beasts thought he was about to die, the system chimed, "Kiss complete. Attack power plus." What kind of crazy attack is that? Bella screamed. Even the beasts froze. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" Realizing something was off, Yog's eyes snapped open. She quickly leapt back to create distance. She couldn't understand. She wanted to rip off his head, yet her body had moved on its own to kiss him. Ceres calmly wiped the corner of his lips, then shouted righteously, "For the safety of the innocent, 10 more like you, and I still won't back down." The beasts whispered among themselves, saying they'd heard the queen had taken a toy boy outside. Maybe this human was that so-called Ceres face. The beast commander immediately barked at them to be silent. No one was to doubt the queen's loyalty to the king. Yog's face flushed even redder. She thought, what happened here must never reach the king. She decisively ordered her soldiers to kill the human. The moment the words left her mouth, a beast swung its giant axe straight at Ceres. Clang! The sword Ceres had forged with 2.5 years of savings shattered in an instant. Before he could even gasp at their strength, another beast roared and charged from the front. Thankfully, Ceres reacted fast. He ducked low, narrowly dodging the deadly strike. That's when he remembered. His attack had increased by 100 points. He slashed instinctively, and under that surge of power, a single blow sent the beast flying backward. An F-class hero this strong, Bella exclaimed in disbelief. But just as Ceres thought the danger had passed, a dark blur rushed in from behind. The next instant, Yog's long, powerful legs came down from above, her strike cutting through the air towards Ceres' head. Ceres crossed his arms just in time to block the incoming strike, but the sheer force shattered the ground beneath him. The queen had him completely pinned with overwhelming power. One of the beasts roared, ready to finish the human off, but Yog's tail lashed out, sending the creature flying 2 meters back. No one moves. Yog's voice echoed coldly. "I'll teach this insolent human a lesson myself." The beasts cheered wildly, eager to see the queen crush the intruder. Yog bared her fangs. Her aura exploded like a storm of black energy. A sudden system chime rang out, "Defense plus." Yog's eyes flickered with confusion. Why was her power reacting so violently to this human's presence? The magic inside her surged out of control, her strikes becoming wilder by the second. The watching beasts turned red-faced. Is the queen torturing him? Why does this fight feel so weird? Another beast laughed aloud. "You fools. She's pushing herself to break through her limits." After 2.5 minutes of relentless assault, Ceres felt his stats spike. His strength was now enough to rival the entire army. He drew his spare sword and launched a counterattack. But Yog struck first, slamming him into the stone wall. The beast shouted, "The queen really means to kill him. Humans shouldn't defy the demon race." Yet even as Yog fought, Her power raged inside her, barely under control. She roared, "A mere human dares to defy us. Let me send you straight to hell." Yog roared. With a swipe of her claw, she shattered the armored defense on Saris's body. The watching beasts went wild. The queen's using a kill move. That's a heartbreaker. But in Yog's mind, one thought echoed. This human's physical power. It's unreal. Her body moved on its own, drawn forward by a surging magical resonance. Saris fought back with all his strength, but her pressure kept driving him down. In the end, she pinned him firmly against the ground with sheer power. Bella froze. Wait, aren't they supposed to be fighting? Saris felt his stats skyrocketing and shouted, "Fine." Then let the storm hit harder. The beast stared in stunned silence. Is this still a battle? This looks awkward. Just then, the Demon King returned from the hunt, only to see that scene. 78 clang. His sword slipped from his hand. "My queen, what in the world are you doing?" The system chimed. Demon King suffered critical shock. All stats doubled. Yog snapped back to her senses. "My king, wait. It's not what you think." But the king's aura flared bright green. "You cursed Saris' face. I'll kill you myself." With blinding speed, he charged straight at Saris. The impact sent Saris flying backward, shattering the ground. Thankfully, his boosted stats kept him alive. Otherwise, that blow would have killed him. Still furious, the Demon King shouted at Yog. "Didn't you swear there wouldn't be a next time?" Yog shot back, "And you? Who told you to come back this late?" The king froze, completely dumbfounded. Even the beasts were speechless. Yog grew more agitated. "Don't act innocent. Tell me, were you out with another fox spirit again?" The king panicked. "No, I was chasing runaway humans. That's all. I swear there won't be a next time." The beasts clicked their tongues. If even the mighty king could bow his head, no wonder he married a queen like that. But mid-conversation, the Demon King suddenly noticed something and blew up at his lackeys. "You idiots. Are you blind? People are slipping away. Can any of you block them?" One subordinate mumbled embarrassedly, "My king, please don't be angry. This was the queen's order. She told us not to interfere." Left with no choice, the king stepped forward and snarled at Saris. "You filthy human. Today, I'll send you to meet your maker." With that, he swung his great sword and blasted Saris through the air. As Saris slammed into the ground, he felt ribs ache. At his current strength, he was no match for the king. As he gathered himself, the Demon King's blade dropped again. He intended to make him pay for daring to charm the queen. As the strike fell, Saris whispered the system lock in his mind. The next instant, Yog slapped the king and shouted, "She does not allow you to hurt me." The king stared in disbelief. He demanded an explanation from Yog. 104, but Yog ignored the question and fixed her gaze on Saris, saying, "She wants to obtain this human's power." Without hesitation, she lunged at Saris. The king grabbed her hand. "My queen, what are you saying?" Yog ripped free and surged forward. She slammed into Saris and pinned him to the ground. Seeing his beloved pin someone down, the king's heart shattered. Still, he apologized to Yog with a guilty tone. "It's my fault. I let him take advantage." Yog snapped back angrily, "Get away. Don't interrupt us." The king collapsed into despair. Yog knew it looked wrong, but her mind held only one thought. She had to completely seize and draw out this man's power. The humiliated king trembled with rage. After howling to the sky, he could no longer contain his fury and blasted forward. "Today, I will kill you two scoundrels." But when he saw Yog's shocked face, the weapon in his hand froze, unable to move another inch. The next second, Yog turned without hesitation and began drawing in mana again. The Demon King let out a cry of despair. Good heavens, he still loved her. With his spirit shattered, the hand holding his weapon fell limp to his side. At that moment, he wanted nothing more than to end everything in one final explosion. The surrounding beasts panicked. Everyone knew that if the Demon King self-destructed, everything within 100 meters would turn to dust. The shockwave of his rising power snapped Yog back to her senses. "My king, what are you doing?" But just as disaster was about to strike, the system chimed. Saris had reached level 10, and his new skill was unlocked. With a single slash, the broken sword in his hand decapitated the Demon King. The skill's name? Blink slash, a fatal cut that strikes any enemy within 5 meters. Seeing the king's headless body fall before her, Yog froze in disbelief. But instead of sorrow, she frowned. Seriously? Not even half this reaction last time. Shouldn't he be calmer the second time? What a weak-willed guy. Her words made the dying king twitch back to life out of sheer fury. He grabbed Yog tightly in his final rage, roaring, "If you break your promise, my love, then die with him." Yog struggled and shouted, "Let her go. She's not dying with you." A cold light flashed from the king's body once more, and Yog was flung away by the blast. As the massive explosion spread across the battlefield in an instant. After what felt like ages, Saris opened his eyes and realized he was in a completely unfamiliar place. From the fragments of his fading memory, it seemed he and the others had fallen to the bottom of the dungeon. That's when he noticed a tiny purple lizard resting right on his chest. The system panel identified it immediately. It was none other than Yog's true form, the lilac lizard. Before he could take a closer look, the little creature darted straight into his pocket. Then, another system window popped up. Demon King Ballaret eliminated. Reward: Nate Dungeon Map. With Bella still lying on top of him, Saris hesitated. Pressing the accept reward button felt awkward. After a few long minutes, Bella finally stirred awake. Taking advantage of her day's silence, Saris quickly pressed accept. The map unfolded, displaying every tunnel, trap, and hidden resource throughout the dungeon. Saris cheered aloud. Finally, no more wandering blindly or running into monster nests. But the next second, his heart suddenly began to pound violently. Purple blood spilled from his mouth. His pinky finger started melting before his eyes. Bella watched in horror as he writhed on the ground. She quickly held him close, whispering words of comfort. Minute by minute, the agony subsided, and the melting stopped. Later, when Bella asked about his melting finger, Saris explained quietly, his voice heavy, it was poison. Half a year ago, he had accidentally witnessed a fierce battle between monsters and a brave hero. Their target wasn't the hero himself, but the strange box he carried. During the clash, the box was struck by a monster's claw, leaving a deep crack. The shockwave sent Saris flying, crashing hard into the nearby ruins. From the broken box, black liquid began to ooze out. The sky turned blood red, and soon, a rain of blood poured down, thick with a nauseating stench. Both the hero and the monsters began to melt within seconds of touching it. Saris survived only because he was buried beneath the rubble. But when he awoke, the doctor told him grimly, his body was poisoned beyond cure, and he had only 1 year left to live. The very next day, the system appeared. Demon God's blood can cure all poison. But the message came with a condition. Only registered players could locate it. That's why Saris, though just an F-class hero, dared to infiltrate a dungeon meant for D-class and above. His only goal, to find the blood of the demon god and stay alive. Meanwhile, the main strike force of the subjugation team was making its way through a dim dungeon corridor. With a loud click, the leading member accidentally stepped on a floor trap. A beam of light shot through his body instantly, clean, cold, and final. Captain Saris didn't even flinch. Same rule as always, he said flatly. Lowest level steps up and leads the way. One unlucky fodder was shoved forward. Terror froze him where he stood, trembling uncontrollably. But under Saris's intimidating glare, he forced himself to move. A moment later, another beam pierced straight through his skull. The entire squad froze, horrified. These traps were on a whole new level of insane. Then, a strange noise echoed from deeper within the corridor. When a familiar face appeared out of the shadows, Saris froze in disbelief. Wait, didn't the decoy squad all die? How the hell is he still alive? He scowled and barked, why are you still breathing? Saris blinked in confusion, completely lost. He suddenly remembered the day before the expedition, when Saris had cornered him, demanding to know how he knew his wife's underwear color. He had told the truth. He had gained a color perception ability during his system test. But instead of believing him, Saris accused him of having an affair with his wife, Su-Chin. To prove his innocence, Saris had proudly demonstrated his color detection training right on the spot. Saris managed to describe everyone's outfits in perfect detail, patterns, fabrics, even the ridiculous ones. That was the only reason the awkward fight ended peacefully. But judging from Sirius's expression now, he clearly still didn't buy it. And sure enough, Sirius's suspicion proved right. Sirius waved his hand, ordering coldly, "Get over here." Bella quickly warned him not to move recklessly. But they didn't know Sirius already had every trap's exact position memorized in his mind. With confident steps, he reached the captain's side unharmed. The others stared, jaws dropping. No way, this guy just lucked out through all that. But when Sirius calmly said it was all the result of training, Sirius pressed his blade against Sirius's neck. "Then you lead the way," he sneered. "Let's see how long your luck holds." Under Sirius's lead, the squad flawlessly avoided every trap and reached a narrow corridor. A massive stalactite hung above the final trap. Pointing ahead, Sirius said, "Beyond here should be the boss's chamber." Sirius's eyes narrowed. Perfect, he thought. Once we're here, this punk pays for flirting with my wife. After all, an F-class hero crushed by falling rocks wouldn't raise any suspicion. But just as his sword sliced through the stalactite, a sharp tail burst out from inside. Before Sirius could react, it slammed into him and sent him flying across the corridor. A massive scorpion demon emerged from the shadows, its carapace gleaming in the torchlight. Sirius, however, was trapped behind a wall of fallen debris. He turned, realizing his escape route was completely sealed. Then a cold, raspy voice whispered behind him, "Why is there still a disgusting human here?" Sirius turned toward the source of the voice, only to find himself swallowed by complete darkness. Suddenly, a sharp tail lashed out from the shadows. He barely dodged, heart pounding with relief. But another scorpion beast dropped from above, claws raised to strike. After narrowly avoiding several deadly blows, Sirius roared, "Taste my 3200 attack power, you ugly bug." With a deafening boom, his punch obliterated the creature in a single hit. Just as he caught his breath, a calm, mocking voice echoed from the darkness. "Impressive. You destroyed her scorpion puppet with one punch. I was going to let it twist your head off, but it seems I'll have to do it myself." From the shadows, a figure emerged. The system identified her. A-rank plus demon beast Shatter. Sarah smirked, replying, "Funny. The last one who wanted my head is now my pet." Shatter chuckled softly, her tone dripping with disdain. To kill those fools outside, one hand would be enough. As for this human before her, he wasn't even worth lifting a finger for. She slowly raised one flawless, long leg. Seeing that perfect leg glimmer under the faint light, Sirius couldn't help a nosebleed as he shouted, "I'm a hero who protects humanity. Come at me with everything you've got." Before he could finish speaking, Shatter's attack was already on him. Sirius had no time to react. Her hand clamped around his throat. She slammed him hard onto the ground. "To make it this far," she said coldly, "you've surpassed 90% of the so-called heroes. But this is where it ends." Knowing his only goal was to find the blood of the demon god, Sirius activated his system and, without hesitation, lunged to bite her delicate foot. Shatter gasped in shock. "You filthy human. Did you just bite my foot?" Outside, the others tensed up at the sight of the scorpion demon, the same monster that had swatted their captain away with one blow. The archer quickly took aim, releasing a flurry of arrows. But even as every shot landed squarely, they didn't leave a single scratch. Realizing their attacks were useless, Sirius drew a sharp breath, ready to order a full assault. But then, the young warrior Tyre shouted excitedly, "Guys, look! Her face is turning red. It's working." Bella, however, noticed something behind the scorpion demon. She frowned. "Sirius, don't tell me he got knocked out under those rocks." "Tyre, cover me," she shouted. "I'm gonna pull Sirius out of there." She darted forward like lightning. The scorpion demon turned, ready to strike at her. But Tyre leapt in front, blocking the attack with his sword. At that moment, Sirius finally broke free from Shatter's grip. Shatter glanced down at her foot, her eyes narrowing. That shameless man will pay for this. Sirius, however, still thought the same line. Bring it on. The stronger the storm, the better. But without a weapon, he couldn't activate his blink slash. So he clenched his fists and charged straight at her. To his surprise, Shatter dodged effortlessly, and with a perfect high kick, slammed her heel right across his face. But in that brief contact, her expression shifted. Wait, why does his face feel satisfying a kick? As Saris hit the ground, the system chimed. Target agitation level, 54%. Shatter clutched her head, confused by the strange rush building inside her. Still thinking of how he bit her foot, she forced herself to focus and activated her puppet art. Her plan: end this ridiculous fight once and for all. But with Yord's agility bonus on his side, that attack wasn't even close to hitting Saris. He channeled energy and slashed the tail clean off. Before he could move again, her long leg whipped forward, locking his neck once more. She pinned him hard against the wall. With an almost gleeful smirk, she said, "This time, you're not getting away. I'll choke you out with my foot." Saris's eyes sharpened. Then he suddenly grabbed her thigh. The unexpected touch made Shatter let out a startled scream. Furious and flustered, she yelled, "Don't you dare touch my leg with those filthy hands," and unleashed her puppet art again. Her tail coiled around him, locking him tight. She slowly lifted her foot. "Now," she said coldly, "time to teach you some manners." When her heel pressed against his face, a strange wave of pleasure flooded through her, so intense it made her want to step on him again and again. Outside, Tyre was still desperately blocking the scorpion beast, buying time for Bella. But before Bella could reach the rubble, the creature's tail struck her squarely. With a loud thud, she crashed to the ground right behind Saris. Back inside, Saris groaned, "Hey, don't step there." But Shatter didn't hesitate. Her foot came down hard. On the battlefield, Tyre suddenly shouted, "Guys, look, that monster's staggering. It can't stay on its feet." The scorpion demon's legs pressed together as its body twisted uncontrollably. Saris grinned darkly. "Perfect. In this condition, I can take it down myself." He stepped forward, activating his skill, Tiger Howl, Severing Strike. Just as he expected, the blow sent the monster flying across the hall. The team erupted in cheers. "Captain Saris is unbeatable." "Yeah, with the captain here, we've got nothing to fear." The praise only fueled Saris's ego. He waved his hand and declared, "Fall back. I'll finish this one myself." Back inside, Shatter was panting heavily. She kept telling herself to calm down, but her body refused to listen, craving to stomp again. Saris shouted up at her, "Use whatever tricks you've got. I'll never bow beneath your feet." But before he could finish, Shatter shoved her foot right into his mouth. Snarling, "Shut up. I don't want to hear another disgusting word from you." She didn't realize that her action sent his stats skyrocketing. With each passing second, her agitation level rose to a critical 98%. At that exact moment, the scorpion puppet outside froze mid-move. Saris seized the chance. Now, Crescent Slash. The monster's body spasmed, letting out a grotesque cry. The squad roared, "Amazing. Captain, you broke its mind." Saris smirked, lowering his sword. Pathetic. It couldn't even put up a fight. With one final swing, he split the creature in half. Inside, Shatter was still lost in her haze, oblivious to the chaos outside. Then, a chilling voice echoed in her mind, "Shatter, why is there such noise outside?" Her blood ran cold. "No, I forgot Lord Nay's order, to kill every human here." She clenched her fists, forcing herself to focus. "I can still make this right if I act fast." But to Shatter's shock, an overwhelming pressure, equal to that of Lord Nay herself, crashed down upon her. She couldn't understand it. How could this human, who was so helpless moments ago, suddenly radiate such power? Realizing she was no match for him anymore, only one thought remained in her mind: run. She vanished into the darkness. Saris didn't bother to chase. His goal was the blood of the demon god. No point wasting energy on a fight that didn't matter. Soon after, he emerged from the rubble. Bella rushed to him, worry written all over her face. Tyre clenched his fists as he watched the scene. Saris, meanwhile, raised his sword high and shouted, "Everyone behind me. We're taking down this dungeon boss tonight." To him, the dungeon's monsters were all pathetic. The boss had to be weak too. Once he soloed it, he'd get his promotion and maybe ditch his nagging wife, Su Chin, for a rich beauty. Inside the Lord's chamber, Shatter knelt before Nay. "My lady," she reported, a powerful human appeared outside. Somehow, He caused the weak hero's strength to skyrocket beyond comprehension. Nay's cold voice echoed through the chamber. Shatter, the only order I gave you was to guard the door, to ensure nothing entered this room. Was I unclear? Shatter's pupils widened in horror. Before she could speak, a beam of light pierced clean through her chest. Nay exhaled slowly. I have no need for excuses. You'll serve better as fuel for my creation, the demon god's blood. With a flick of her hand, she tossed Shatter's body into a heap of monster corpses. As darkness swallowed her, Shatter whispered in her mind, I don't want to die yet. Suddenly, the massive door to the chamber exploded inward. Nay turned sharply, her voice a razor of rage. Who dares intrude upon my sanctum? Ceres replied fearlessly, Of course, I'm the kind of hero that even you would fear. In the next instant, he took a battle stance and shouted, telling everyone not to interfere. He would solo the C-rank dungeon boss himself. Without hesitation, he charged forward with a loud roar. Yet Nay merely raised her arms slightly. A sharp hum echoed. A beam of energy shot forth, striking Ceres before he could even react. The impact sent him crashing into the wall, dust exploding around him. Nay scoffed softly. So this is humanity's strongest? Pathetic. Shatter, you truly are worthless. Ceres stared in disbelief. If not for the S-grade dragon scale armor from his brother, that blast would have killed him outright. He couldn't understand. How could the power gap between monsters be this enormous? But greed overpowered reason. He barked an order for everyone to charge, using his comrades as pawns to wear the boss down, planning to take the glory himself. Captain, stop. Teal shouted. You'll get everyone killed. Defy my orders, are you? Sirius snapped back coldly. Despite their fear, the team lunged forward to attack. Meanwhile, Ceres's gaze locked on the pool of green liquid behind Nay. According to the system, that was the blood of the demon god, the only cure that could save his life. Suddenly, a chilling wave of power surged through the air. Nay was charging another deadly spell. With a flash of light, a beam even stronger than before tore through the room. Acting on instinct, Ceres grabbed Bella and Teal, diving aside just in time to evade the blast. Those struck by the beam vanished instantly, not even leaving a scream behind. Sirius survived by pure luck, his face drained of all color. When he looked up and saw Nay floating in the air like a god, sheer terror filled his heart. His only thought was to run. Then, one of the survivors grabbed his arm. Captain Sirius, you said you'd solo the dungeon boss. So many have died because of you. Now stand your ground. Idiot. Sirius roared. She's charging another beam. If you want to die, do it alone. Seeing Ceres remain silent, he grew enraged. You can't beat the boss, but you think you can beat me, an F-rank weakling? Before his fist could land, Ceres caught it effortlessly. In one swift motion, he flung Sirius backward like a rag doll. At that very moment, Nay's energy beam reached full charge. The explosion shook the entire chamber. Sirius was blasted away, eyes rolling back as he lost consciousness. Ceres didn't move an inch, his stance unwavering. Bella and Teal exchanged a look, both deciding to stay. I'm staying. With Ceres, Bella said firmly. Teal smirked awkwardly. I'm a #1 B-rank hero. I'm just here to slay monsters. Nay sneered, insulted by their defiance. She raised her hand, summoning another blast. But before it could fire, Ceres's broken blade glimmered, and he struck without hesitation, slashing toward her arm. Feeling the surge of danger, Nay instantly pulled her arm back. Ceres seized the opening and sprinted toward the pool of demon god's blood. Nay finally realized this human hadn't stayed to fight her. He'd stayed for the blood. Taking advantage of her distraction, Bella and Teal raised their weapons and launched a joint attack. But Nay effortlessly blocked every strike with a single motion. Her other hand began to glow. She was charging another devastating spell. Don't you dare touch Ceres, Bella shouted, voice trembling with rage. Both of them threw all their strength into stopping her, forcing Nay off balance for a split second. The beam veered off course, missing Ceres entirely. Yet, just as he reached for the demon god's blood, the protective seal flared to life. A powerful blast erupted, sending Ceres flying 100 meters backward. That seal was drawn by my own hand, Nay said coldly. As long as I live, no creature will ever cross it. Saris understood at last. If he wanted the demon god's blood, he had to defeat her first. Then, a faint whisper came from a crack in the stone. Please, Shatter trembled. Don't let Lady Nay know I'm here. Saris froze. He didn't understand why she was so weak, but he remembered, without her, he wouldn't have survived. Without hesitation, he placed a purple mushroom beside the crack. Shatter's eyes widened in disbelief. It was a jade bloom mushroom, a rare item that restored beast vitality. Just then, Bella's scream echoed through the chamber. Saris turned and dashed toward her. As Shatter swallowed the mushroom, the system chimed. Female monster Shatter's affection for the player has increased. Weapon unlock condition met. In the next moment, dozens of blue cards appeared before them. Nay's attack was about to strike Bella and the others. Saris randomly drew a card. With a humming sound, a crimson longsword manifested in Saris's hand. The system announced the weapon name, Strip Sunder Longsword. Although he didn't know what made the blade special, Saris swung without hesitation. Unexpectedly, Nay seemed to have anticipated the move and absorbed the blow. It turned out that she had targeted Saris from the start. Bella and the others were merely bait to lure Saris in. After all, to her, killing this human up close would be as easy as crushing an ant. Still, Saris poured every ounce of strength into the strike and shouted, "Don't you dare underestimate me." With a tearing sound, a cut opened across Nay's palm. At first, Nay intended to mock Saris's power. But then, in the next second, the garments on her upper body suddenly exploded apart. She flushed. How could her clothes have vanished? Bella stood frozen. Even Teal cried out, that sight. Unreal. Blood trickling from his nose. Saris muttered, "This beast is strong. Damn, it's strong." The system explained. The Strip Sunder longsword strips struck enemies of their clothing. If an enemy loses all garments, a holy sword descends to deliver an instant kill. Naturally, Nay boiled with shame and fury. "You filthy wretch, today I will kill you." Saris didn't take the threat to heart. Instead, he rapidly calculated a plan. Based on the previous strike, cutting her palm removed her upper garments. In other words, if he used a shun strike on her legs, her lower robe would likewise disintegrate. Once her mask was shattered, the burst garment divine blade would trigger its ultimate strike, cutting her down in an instant. With that thought, Saris launched the first attack toward Nay. But to his surprise, every swing of his sword was effortlessly dodged. Seeing him keep aiming at her lower body, Nay's rage hit its peak. She shouted furiously, claiming she had never met someone so perverted, daring to aim at a woman's clothes down there. With that, she kicked Saris hard across the face. The sharp pain jolted his mind, but he quickly realized this pain was nothing compared to the agony of his body melting under poison. Without hesitation, he launched his second assault. Nay, however, raised her arm again, preparing to fire another beam. She thought this attack would finish him, but Saris dodged it with a swift sidestep. With a sharp slash, the divine blade of burst sliced through the air. He felt the satisfying impact through the sword. Yet to his surprise, he had only cut off Nay's tail. Hovering above, she sneered, "Brat, if I weren't worried about flashing everyone, I'd have turned you into dust already with your lousy swordplay." As her words fell, a bright beam slammed into the ground. Just as Saris was about to use Blink's slash to evade, the system warned him. Only 6 charges left with a 10-second cooldown. He cursed the useless skill under his breath and braced himself to take the hit head-on. Thankfully, with the Divine Blade's power, he managed to cut through the energy beam. Watching him shatter a boss-level attack, Tyr was utterly stunned. How could a mere F-rank hero display such overwhelming strength? Even he, a B-rank top hero, couldn't step into that fight. Saris smirked at Nay. "Your attacks, I can break them or dodge them. So, are you ready to die?" Hearing that, Nay slowly lifted her arm. He was right. Killing him now wouldn't be easy. But killing that injured woman nearby would be as simple as crushing an ant. The moment her beam fired, Saris's body turned into a blur. Even though the strike managed to cut through Nay's fingernail, it was still a second too late. Realizing what happened, Saris burst forward, dashing straight toward Bella. Nay sneered inwardly. Humans were always the same, foolishly throwing themselves in danger for others. That's why monsters always had no trouble taking them from behind. At that moment, Saris saw nothing but Bella. He failed to notice the danger closing in from behind. In a split second, he ordered the system to lock onto Bella and activated Blink Slash. The next instant, he appeared before her, blocking the fatal strike. The shockwave from his sword shattered Bella's armor into pieces. Regaining her senses, Bella stared wide-eyed. Was this really the Saris she knew? Seeing her attack miss again, Nay ground her teeth in fury. Then, from the side, the demon blood pool suddenly let out a sputtering sound. Realizing what happened, Nay shouted, "Damn it! I was so caught up in fighting I forgot to feed the fire. If the demon's blood cools down, it'll take 100 years to boil again." She waved her hand and started hurling beast corpses into the pool. Meanwhile, Bella was gasping for air, feeling a strange surge of restlessness rising from deep inside her chest. Then Bella suddenly reached out, grabbing Saris by the head, leaving Tyr completely baffled, his mind filled with question marks. Yet the moment Bella moved closer, Saris's mind flashed with the image of her when she was only 8 years old. Instinctively, he rolled backward, scrambling away more than 2 meters. That movement snapped Bella back to her senses. She couldn't understand why she'd acted like that in the middle of battle, even sticking out her tongue without thinking. Watching it all, Tyr tried to reassure himself. Bella must have been hallucinating from poison. That had to be the reason for such strange behavior. Meanwhile, Saris refocused on Nay in the distance. Judging by her actions, she seemed intent on burning the demon's blood dry. But with her incredible speed, his attacks barely scratched her. Thinking quickly, he grabbed Bella's hand and told her he had a plan to defeat the enemy, but it required her full cooperation. Hearing the plan, Bella instantly turned her head away, embarrassed. Even Tyr cursed inwardly. How could this guy say something so indecent with such a righteous face? He jumped between them, shouting that Saris was clearly trying to take advantage of Bella. How could he think of such perverted things at a time like this? But Bella, blushing deeply, replied, "Saris, I believe you." Though it made her extremely uneasy, she added quickly, "Don't misunderstand. I only agree because we need to defeat the monster." Saris broke into a cold sweat. His mind flashed back to what she once said as a child. "We're playing house. I'm the mom, you're the dad. Since I kissed you, I'll take responsibility." At that moment, he felt as disgusted as if he'd just swallowed a fly. Without hesitation, he pushed her away. Tyr watched in disbelief, feeling as though he'd taken 100,000 emotional damage. The goddess he could never have was rejected by someone who could. The next instant, a system message popped up. Level +1. All stats +5. Saris exhaled in relief. Thanks to Tyr, that overeager hothead, he'd managed to avoid actually touching Bella. Seeing Saris charge forward without hesitation to face the boss, Bella quickly stood up and asked, "Do you really not need my help? What if you can't win?" Even as the system warned that her arousal level had reached 99%, Saris didn't stop. He dashed ahead, determined. The memory of that past moment was far too terrifying. Meanwhile, after tossing in all the beast corpses, Nay realized the blood sigil still lacked a bit of heat. If she didn't stabilize it soon, the demon's blood would cool down. Thinking fast, she set her sights on the 3 humans nearby. As Saris was still pondering how to trigger the Burst Garment Divine Blade's ultimate skill, Nay suddenly spread her arms and began floating midair. At that point, she no longer cared about exposing herself. She only wanted to unleash her full power and burn this human alive as fuel for the demon's blood. Seeing that, Saris couldn't help but gape. Damn, that's huge. The next moment, a massive energy beam shot toward him, though Saris managed to block it with the Divine Blade. The system flashed a warning. His mana was draining fast, plummeting from nearly 4,000 to just above 1,000 in seconds. With a loud boom, he finally dispersed the energy blast. But another system alert appeared. Mana too low, skill activation unavailable. Panic flickered across his face. Nay smirked coldly, declaring herself the winner of this battle. Yet just as despair began to set in, a hand quietly reached out from behind Saris. He turned, startled. Bella pulled him into her arms and whispered, "You do need my help. don't you? Then she added softly, Tyr, you're a good man. But I've told you before, there's already someone in my heart. Since childhood, it's always been Saris. Tyr froze, struck by lightning. The system chimed. Tyr's heart shattered. Instantly, all of Saris's stats rose by 27,500 points. A tremendous surge of energy burst out from within him. The terrifying surge of energy made Nay cry out in disbelief. How could this human, already pushed to the brink, still unleash such overwhelming power? Though the shockwave made her uneasy, she still sneered inwardly. No matter how much a weak human grew, they could never compare to a beast. But before she could finish that thought, a flash of cold light sliced clean across her body. Almost simultaneously, Saris had already appeared behind her, completing his strike. The system chimed. Burst Garment Divine Blade unlocked. Ultimate skill, Holy Sword Descent. That slash not only shattered Nay's mask, but also left a long scar across her face. Enraged beyond control, she began charging her ultimate attack. Boom! A colossal beam of energy erupted, shaking the entire arena. Yet Saris showed no fear. Instead, he raised the Divine Blade and unleashed a primal, unrestrained strike. The terrifying power cleaved through the beam with ease and slammed Nay hard into the ground. Even Bella and Tyr in the distance were caught in the shockwave. As the smoke cleared, Saris looked down at Nay and declared victory. Without delay, he rushed toward the demon's blood pool, intent on retrieving the antidote that could save his life. But to his surprise, the protective barrier around the pool was still active. Nay stood up and snarled, "Filthy human. If you want the demon's blood, you'll have to step over my corpse first." Hearing that, Saris readied his blade to send her straight to hell. But suddenly, Tyr's voice echoed out, calling Bella's name in panic. Saris turned sharply. Bella had collapsed, unconscious. The system flashed, warning, target's HP critically low, near death state. Nay steadied herself, ready for one final fight. But before she could react, Saris vanished from her sight. A heartbeat later, he reappeared with Bella in his arms, his other hand gripping Tyr tightly. And without a glance back, he dashed toward the exit, shouting, "System, open the map. Show me the fastest route to the dungeon's exit." Seeing this, Nay thought the human was utterly foolish, giving up the perfect chance to claim the demon's blood just to save his companions. Yet, even while injured, she dragged herself to the blood pool. She couldn't allow its heat to fade. Without hesitation, Nay leapt into the demon's blood. "Holy Lord of Demons, Nay can no longer serve you personally." Her voice trembled as flames engulfed her completely. Meanwhile, Saris entered a narrow corridor, only to be blocked by a massive beast. His eyes hardened, and flashes of memory surfaced. Bella, as a child, mocked by everyone for her looks, called a monster girl. Even Tyr had warned him not to get too close, saying he'd catch the ugliness. But Saris shoved Tyr aside, shouting to Bella, "Our game isn't over yet. This time I'm still the dad, you're the mom. I kissed you, so I'll take responsibility." With that memory burning in his chest, Saris swung the divine blade of Burst without hesitation. The monstrous beast was cleaved cleanly in two. He called out to Bella, "You'll be fine. I said I'd protect you, and I will, no matter what." Suddenly, the system notified, enemy eliminated. Weapon returned to system. Though he didn't understand why, his top priority was getting Bella to safety. At the same time, Celes, supported by his teammates, staggered out of the dungeon, vowing to blame Saris for his near death and the loss of his dragon armor. But then, the team spotted someone sprinting toward the exit at incredible speed. When they realized it was the very man responsible for Celes's humiliation, Celes snatched a weapon from a teammate and roared, "You disobeyed my order," and ran off. "As your captain, I'll execute you right here." But before he could finish, he was kicked flat onto the ground. Then came Saris's calm, dismissive voice. "I don't have time for you right now, we'll talk when I'm done." Without another glance, he dashed forward at full speed. After successfully bringing Bella to the hospital, Saris finally let out a sigh of relief. Now, it was time to return to the dungeon, to retrieve the antidote made from the demon's blood. But what he didn't know was that deep inside the dungeon, as the blood sigil completed its circuit, a crimson pillar of light shot straight into the sky. Moments later, a massive gate covered by a red veil began to form. Watching it unfold, Shadow's curiosity grew. She couldn't understand what kind of being had been summoned by all those sacrifices. Then, a pair of hands slowly parted the curtain. A suffocating wave of terror swept over her. She could sense it. Whatever lurked beyond that veil was far beyond mortal comprehension. The crimson veil over the demon's blood pool began to shift and take human form. And there he was, the demon god, Sathos. Overwhelmed by fear, Shadil wanted only to run. But even the slightest motion couldn't escape Sathos's gaze. With a casual flick of his hand, the entire chamber crumbled into ruin. Facing the figure before her, Shadil knew there was no escape. Yet instead of killing her, Sathos commanded softly, "Open your mouth." Under the crushing weight of his presence, Shadil obeyed, lifting her head. As the demon's blood trickled into her mouth, she felt her body begin to heal on its own. Sathos's blood, it could repair any wound and grant immense power to those who consumed it. Smiling at his creation, Sathos lifted her chin and said in a low voice, "It's nearly night. Find a clean room and wait for him." Not understanding his words, Shadil blushed deeply. As night fell, Saris followed his memory back to Nay's chamber. Though he didn't know why the place had collapsed, he headed straight for the pool of demon's blood. But the moment he stepped onto the platform, he froze. The once living pool was now completely dry. Realizing the danger, he immediately opened his map, searching frantically. That blood was the only antidote that could save his life. Meanwhile, Shadil sat nervously at the edge of the bed. Then, a pair of hands gently rested on her shoulders. Trembling, she whispered, "Lord Sathos, please don't do this." But the next instant, Sathos pulled her tightly into his arms, making her gasp and scream in shock. Yet soon she realized something was off. Something soft was pressing against her back. When Shadil broke free and turned around, her eyes went wide with disbelief. The once male, Sathos, had transformed into a woman. Calmly, Sathos explained, his heart had been sealed within the Hero Guild. Once night fell, he lost all power and reverted to a frail female form. He had summoned Shadil merely to ensure his safety during this vulnerable time. Then, tilting her chin upward, he warned coldly, "Don't even think of betraying me. Any beast who has tasted my blood, even at night, I can melt with ease." Suddenly, Shadil sensed an approaching presence, fast and dangerous. Before she could move, Sathos's voice echoed in her mind. "During battle, don't stray more than 5 kilometers from me. Go beyond that range, and the demon's blood will erase you." At the same time, the system issued a notification. The demon's blood remains within Nay's dungeon. Ahead lay the only unexplored area. As Saris neared the Crimson Gate, a long, swift leg came down toward him in a lethal kick. He reacted instantly, leaping back to avoid the strike. When he saw it was Shadil, she didn't attack again. Instead, she warned, "Leave this place before dawn." Saris smirked. "That's good. Looks like you've recovered enough to fight again. So, how was the mushroom I gave you?" Hearing that, Shadil's face turned bright red. Trying to sound fierce, she snapped, "That was the most disgusting mushroom I've ever eaten. Now get lost. Far away." As her words fell, the system chimed. Affinity plus 71%. Saris pointed at her flushed cheeks and teased, "You're blushing. Don't tell me you're lying." A moment later, Shadil, red-faced with rage, kicked at him. "You're full of yourself. I don't like you at all." She followed with a stomp aimed right at his face. But just before the blow landed, Saris vanished without a trace. His voice came from behind her. "I've got things to take care of. I'll play with you later." Only then did Shadil realize this man had completely changed. Saris reached for the heavy door to search for the demon's blood, but before he could push, it opened from the inside. The momentum made his hand brush against something he definitely shouldn't have touched. He immediately withdrew and stammered, "Wait, that wasn't on purpose." Before he could process what was happening, Sathos extended a clawed hand toward him. A scream echoed through the entire chamber. Sathos's eyes widened in shock. He could feel it clearly. His heart was inside this man's body. Taking advantage of the moment, Saris shoved the woman away. But as his arm touched her, the system flashed, "Target identified. Demon's blood detected. He froze. Why had his antidote turned into a human being? Acting on instinct, he sliced open her palm, and without hesitation, brought it to his lips. The system then displayed. Detoxification failed. Sarah stood frozen, baffled by the result. Satho sneered, "I'm human now. You can't cure the poison of the demon's heart anymore." As tension built between them, Shadil intervened with a swift high kick, forcing them apart. Meanwhile, Satho's thought grimly, "His heart has become pure essence within this human. Once I reclaim it, I'll regain my complete form." Saris narrowed his eyes. If she really is the demon's blood, maybe only her other bodily fluids can cure me. With that thought, he decided to take her back for further research. But before he could move, the ground beneath him exploded. From the rubble emerged a giant spider beast. The system identified it, boss-class monster, Ghana. The creature screeched with excitement, "Lord Sathos, you've finally appeared. I've waited nearly 100 years for you. Once I devour you, you'll belong to me forever." Facing a foe of this level, the weakened Shadil and Sathos stood no chance. Saris acted first. He grabbed Sathos in his arms, and without a word, leapt through the collapsed wall, fleeing the dungeon. Ghana blinked in surprise, then shrieked in fury and gave chase. "Human, don't you run. Give her back to me." After nearly 2.5 hours of running, Saris finally managed to shake off Ghana and make it safely back home. Meanwhile, a mischievous idea bloomed inside Sathos's mind. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "Brave hero. She's been cursed by a terrifying beast. If she doesn't join with a man soon, she'll die. So please, hero, save her." Saris straightened up, replying righteously, "I'm a hero of justice. I would never take advantage of someone in need." But as he thought about the poor cursed girl, his moral resolve began to waver. Gripping her shoulders dramatically, he declared, "I, Saris, will bear this pain alone. Let me save you, no matter the cost." Yet as his eyes glanced downward, he froze. Something strange was poking out from the girl's body. "Wait, that's a tail? But tails grow in the back, right? Then what's that in the front?" His pupils dilated in horror. He rolled backward, scrambling away in panic. "Why the hell do you have a weapon too?" he shouted. But before he could react further, Sathos slammed him against the wall, whispering teasingly, "Hero, you said you'd save her. Don't you dare go back on your word." At that moment, something slipped out of his pocket. It was Yog's true form, transforming into a girl as she shouted, "Master, please help her. She's starving to death." Hearing that, Saris immediately pushed Sathos away, saying firmly, "Yog needs help more than you right now." Without another word, he bolted out of the room as fast as he could. Later, while cooking to buy some time, he found himself deep in thought. If I don't save that woman, I'm dead for sure. But the idea of saving her through some intimate construction project made his soul scream in protest. Meanwhile, Sathos appeared behind him once more. If he won't agree, she thought, I'll just have to use force. Without warning, she lunged forward and hugged him tightly from behind. That alone was enough to send Saris running for his life again. Watching him flee, Sathos groaned in frustration. If this body weren't so weak, there's no way a human like you would keep slipping away from me. But fate wouldn't let him off easy. Before long, Sathos confronted him again. Dinner's ready. Isn't it time you kept your promise and saved her? Just as she was about to make her move, the system suddenly flashed. Equipment return in progress. Mission objective. Run down the main street wearing only a sheet, waving to 33 people. With a poof, every piece of armor on Saris vanished instantly. Even Sathos blushed, turning her head away. At first, the righteous hero had no intention of doing something so humiliating. But the system warned again. Failure to comply will result in forced transfer to reverse ascension heaven. A golden portal opened before him. Inside, dozens of muscular men flexed invitingly, smiling as they called out, "Hey, handsome, come join us." Under the threat of that utterly perverse system punishment, Saris had no choice but to accept the mission, tears and all. Before leaving, he turned to Yog. "Watch over Sathos. Don't let her cause trouble." Yog's eyes widened. Humans really have the weirdest ways of going out. Out on the street, the first thing Saris did was wrap a piece of cloth around his face. No one could recognize him that way. Soon he reached the central plaza and shouted, "Step right up. Don't miss your chance. Everyone look over here." Naturally, his half-naked performance made every passerby label him a complete pervert on the spot. Even as an angry mob began chasing from behind, Saris still kept waving and greeting people. After all, compared to fighting dragons, this was nothing. Just as he was about to finish the mission, a giant spider beast suddenly burst from the shadows. Saris stopped in his tracks, planning to fight while completing his greetings. But then the system popped up. Weapon return in progress. All stats reset to base level. He froze, utterly dumbfounded. What kind of stupid setup is this? Meanwhile, another hero managed to knock down one of the monsters using brute strength. As that hero reached for his teammate's weapon, Saris patted his hand and said cheerfully, "Nice work, hero." The man snapped, "Are you insane? Who greets people during battle? And where the hell are your pants?" Distracted, he didn't notice the beast lunging until it was too late. Thankfully, Security Captain Kajek rushed in and sliced the monster clean in half. He was there on official duty to escort Vice Chairman Charlton to the Hero Guild. But before anyone could relax, a chilling female voice echoed from behind. "She senses him. That man is nearby." Kajek spun around and charged forward, but Ghana effortlessly dodged his strike. Then she leaned in, pressing her face close to his neck. In the next instant, poison flooded his veins, and Captain Kajek was dissolved into nothing. Hearing the guard order his comrades to escort Charlton away while he held the monster off, Ghana's eyes snapped sharp. Apparently, she had been seriously underestimated. Meanwhile, Saris was still scouring the area for the last person. A distant scream finally drew his attention. As Ghana, having already dealt with the guards, moved closer to Charlton, Saris called out from the alley, "Hey, fatty over there, look at me." Charlton instinctively turned toward the voice. At that exact moment, Saris's weapon and gear finally returned. The system required him to draw a random card. The weapon he received was the Silent Divine Finger. It can swap a locked enemy's bodily sensations with surrounding objects. If the target cries out from deep inside, the silent power triggers. Seeing the man who'd taken Sadho's right in front of her, Ghana lunged without hesitation. Saris dodged cleanly and used the system to lock onto her. But the instant his hand skimmed the ground, a strange sensation washed over Ghana, as if someone's hand were tracing her body. And with an involuntary scream, the system announced, "Silent power activated." With a thunderous boom, an invisible shockwave slammed Ghana into the earth. Watching the confident grin of the man before her, Ghana realized his hand carried some kind of magic. Though he only brushed the ground, it felt like he'd touched her body, and any sound she made would invite that mysterious retaliation. From that moment, she vowed, whatever happened next, she would not make a sound. Her body and mind belonged to Lord Sadho's alone, and anyone else who touched her must die. She flooded her body with toxins and screamed, "I will bring your charred corpse as atonement to Lord Sadho's." With that, Ghana lunged at Saris once again. Saris, however, calmly ran his hand along the wall beside him. Since the wall corresponded to her armpit this time, the sharp sensation made Ghana scream uncontrollably. The Silent Force's strike followed right after. Ghana quickly covered her mouth, still unsure why this blow was several times stronger than before. Yet deep down, a strange wave of heat and restlessness surged through her. Her hand brushed against the bell on her chest, snapping her back to her senses. She slapped her forehead and shouted, "Human, are you ready to die?" Knowing she was about to get serious, Saris grew tense and focused completely. Ghana dropped to the ground, reaching toward her tail. From it, she drew a weapon gleaming with an eerie light. The hiding place made Saris raise an eyebrow. But from their previous fight, he had realized that the ground and wall represented her chest and armpit. In other words, her weak point was in the narrow alley between the two buildings behind her. Realizing that, Saris turned and ran without hesitation. "Now you're trying to run?" Too late. Ghana roared. Her tail, Spike, morphed into a long blade and slashed forward. But Saris dodged the strike with a swift sidestep. By now, his agility stat had reached an almost terrifying level. Yet suddenly, Ghana's tail sprayed a massive burst of webbing. Before Saris could react, he was pinned tightly against the wall. Ghana stood proudly and sneered, "Foolish human, there's no escape for you now." Just as her blade came down, Saris finally managed to free one of his bound arms. Without hesitation, he began scraping the wall. If his guess was right, that area matched her thigh. Sure enough, it worked instantly. Ghana froze mid-attack, clamping her mouth shut. Even as Saris's movements grew faster, she held her silence through gritted teeth. After 2.5 minutes of agony, the strange sensation finally vanished. She realized, if she didn't make a sound, the silent force wouldn't trigger. But when she looked up again, Saris had already vanished. Then a calm voice echoed behind her, "Now, it's my turn to strike back." Ghana's eyes narrowed as she muttered, "So, you've figured out my attack pattern. If you're not running, then be ready to be crushed." With that, Ghana sealed her own mouth shut with webs. Saris didn't seem concerned. Once Ghana was locked by the silent finger, this entire area became an enlarged version of her body. As long as he struck her weak point precisely, victory would be his. Deep in thought, Saris saw Ghana charge straight toward him. She swore to herself that no matter what tricks he used, she wouldn't make a single sound. Seeing this, Saris unleashed a smooth chain of attacks. Ghana's body trembled uncontrollably, the sensation stronger than ever before. It felt as though the shock came from deep within her own body. Even so, she endured the feeling and continued her assault. Saris smirked. "Let's see how long you can keep quiet. Try this." A stronger wave of numbness hit. Ghana lost balance and fell backward. Unbeknownst to them, Charlton was watching everything from the shadows. He muttered in awe, "This hero's magic is incredible. He made a beast roll on the ground non-stop. If only I could learn that spell." Meanwhile, Ghana reminded herself that she belonged to Sathoz alone. With sheer determination, she poured venom into her weapon, ready to end this strange fight once and for all. Seeing her rush forward recklessly, Saris activated his ancestral technique, striking the walls in a flurry. The familiar paralysis overwhelmed Ghana again, leaving her collapsed and unable to move a single step. Using the last of her strength, she fired a poisoned arrow. Saris, boosted by his maxed-out agility, dodged with ease. But to his surprise, the arrow exploded midair. Within seconds, the confined space filled with thick, deadly poison. Ghana laughed coldly. "This battle belongs to me." The next second, Ghana froze in terror. Saris was suddenly standing atop the building above her. His calm voice echoed through the air. "The same trick won't work twice. Now, are you ready for your punishment?" With that, he pressed both arms against the wall and slid downward in one swift motion. Ghana's body jolted as if struck by lightning. It felt like something deep within her was about to burst through its limits. As Saris's descent grew faster and faster, Ghana realized she couldn't hold on much longer. In that instant, the web sealing her mouth began to crack. Finally, she screamed from the depths of her restraint, "To hell with Sathoz. She wants this human." At that moment, the system alert flashed, Ghana's scream value. With a deafening boom, an explosion erupted from Ghana's body, expanding violently in all directions. As the smoke cleared, Ghana had lost all strength, reverting to her true form, a piercing spider. With the battle over, the system once again retracted the silent finger. Regaining focus, Saris quickly walked toward the center of the explosion. He extended his palm, gesturing for Ghana to climb onto it. Her affectionate gesture made Saris freeze for a moment. Soon, a flurry of system messages appeared. Her affection had maxed out, and a new passive skill was unlocked: Conquest. He also obtained her unique ability, Venom Infusion, allowing him to coat any weapon with lethal toxins. But before he could even test it, a chilling aura swept over him. Sathoz had regained her power and appeared once again. "Human," she hissed, "she's finally found you." Before Saris could react, he was slammed to the ground. Sathoz sneered, lowering her face toward him. "Hero, you promised to save her. How could you stop halfway?" In that moment, Saris finally confirmed his suspicion. This creature wasn't the gentle, white-haired woman from last night, but a powerful monster in disguise. Even so, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Sorry, but I'm not into men." To his horror, Satos transformed into a beast-eared girl and smirked. Then what about now? Saris swung his fist without hesitation. No matter her form, that tale from last night had left an unhealable scar on his psyche. To his disbelief, Satos effortlessly blocked the attack. "If you don't like cat girls," she said with a wicked grin, "then I'll just have to use other methods." She opened her mouth and moved toward his hand. Terrified, Saris jumped straight up, thinking, if she licks me even once, I'll never be clean again. But with a simple motion of her hand, Saris was hurled to the ground by an invisible force. Satos spoke coldly, "Obey me, and I'll cleanse your body with the blood of the demon god." But Saris answered with unshakable resolve. "Even if my body melts in a sludge, you'll never lay a finger on my 18 abs." Realizing persuasion was useless, Satos unleashed his power. His plan was to reclaim his heart and the system first, then torture this insolent human at his leisure. Yet the moment his spell struck Saris's body, the orb in his hand suddenly exploded. A system message appeared before his eyes. System reconnection rejected. Attack on Saris. Nullified. Satos froze in disbelief. He couldn't comprehend how his own system had just betrayed him. At the same time, another message appeared before Saris. Spend 50% of your HP to unlock one guaranteed strike. Eliminate Satos? With no time to hesitate, he chose confirm. Instantly, Satos saw his own interface flash red. Target locked. Skills Spear of Oblivion. Sathos detonation activated. Upon impact, user will be absorbed to detoxify the host. Panic gripped Satos. Never in his existence had he imagined his system would rather kill him than return. But as the former host, he knew the rule. The skill only triggers if the target is visible. He quickly conjured a thick crimson mist to block Saris's sight. In that split second of confusion, Satos sliced open his own palm. A blood-red curtain unfurled behind him, pulsing with energy. Though he had narrowly escaped annihilation, fear lingered in his trembling breath. Shadiel quickly asked Satos what had just happened. Satos didn't bother explaining. Instead, he gave a single order. "Tonight, send me to that human." The reason was simple. The system's restrictions prevented him from harming Saris directly. But if he transformed back into a human, he could exploit a loophole to pleasure him to death. In that state, the system wouldn't even be able to locate him. Realizing his previous appearance was now compromised, Satos instructed Shadiel to cast transformation magic to give him a brand new face. And so, under Shadiel's spell, Satos reemerged as a blue-haired beauty, ready to put his plan into motion. Meanwhile, Saris stared at his panel, amazed that Satos had already escaped several hundred kilometers away in an instant. But upon noticing that his own remaining lifespan was only 50 days, he clenched his fists. He had to find Satos soon, or death was inevitable. As he pondered his next move, a wave of agony surged from the demonic heart within him. A searing pain spread through his legs. His toes were melting, slowly, horrifyingly. The agony blurred his vision. His consciousness began to fade. Luckily, someone witnessed it, Charlton, who rushed to his aid. When Saris opened his eyes again, he was lying inside a hospital ward. Charlton explained that he had been unconscious for over 10 hours. Seeing Charlton hesitate, Saris sighed. "If you got something to say, just say it." Scratching his head awkwardly, Charlton chuckled. "Well, I'm not as young as I used to be, but after seeing how you defeated Ghana, I'd like to become your student. If I could learn that magic, my wife would never kick me out of bed again." Saris blinked, completely dumbfounded. Still, he quickly realized that taking Charlton as an apprentice would grant him access to the Hero Guild's resources to track down Satos. So he reluctantly agreed. Whether the man could actually learn system-based magic wasn't his concern. Maintaining his masterly composure, Saris said calmly, "If you want to learn that magic, start by training your fingers." Charlton immediately clasped his hands together and bowed. "Master, please accept this disciple's respect." As the two were talking, Charlton's secretary, Deus, knocked on the door. From the documents she brought, Saris learned that Saris had officially reported him to the Hero Guild, accusing him of disobeying orders during the Ney dungeon raid, causing the mission's failure. A warrant for his arrest had already been issued. Charlton was about to intervene and clear things up, but Saris stopped him, explaining calmly, The dungeon boss, nay, was slain by my own hand. Send someone to check the site, and my innocence will be clear. Day scoffed. For an F-rank hero to defeat a dungeon boss was beyond belief. Just as she was about to order the arrest, Charlton slammed his hand on the desk and said coldly, "Until the investigation is over, no one touches my master." Not a single hair. After the two left, Saris immediately summoned his system and attempted to locate Sathos. The coordinates appeared and froze him in place. The system indicated that Sathos's current position was inside his own house. Without hesitation, Saris rushed home and kicked open the door. But even after searching every corner, Yog was nowhere to be found. One conclusion remained. Sathos had kidnapped her. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room, Yog slowly opened her eyes. Before she could figure out where she was, a familiar mocking voice whispered, "It seems you girls are about to be auctioned off." Upon hearing that, Yog panicked, thrashing desperately as she cried out that she had to return to her master, or she might collapse from exhaustion and die. Sathos asked curiously, "You're a monster. Shouldn't your place be the dungeon?" Yog answered, "We luminous lizards survive by staying with strong males. My master is strong, so I must follow him." As they spoke, the wall before them suddenly exploded. The guards hit the ground and lost consciousness. Saris finally exhaled. His system had reclaimed all his weapons the instant he struck. Unexpectedly, the system issued another weapon return quest. Spank a target 10 times and make them vocalize. If they don't, you'll be immobilized for 5 minutes. He grabbed a guard and asked if the man could still speak. From the side, Sathos shouted, "Hero, please save them." Knowing they were far from the city and it would be dangerous without recovery, Saris unlocked Yog's shackles at once. Saris immediately removed Yog's restraints. Then, without another word, he smacked her once. Yog protested, "Master, why did you hit me? Did I do something wrong?" Ignoring Yog, Saris looked at Sathos and said, "Miss, to get us out safely, I'll need to do the same to you." Sathos' eyes sharpened. So he really is shameless, using such a ridiculous excuse to take advantage of me. Even so, she raised her delicate foot and replied, "Hero, free her first. If you can get us out, she'll do anything for you." Once freed, Sathos threw herself into his arms, whispering, "Hero, she's so scared. They said they'd sell her to the goblins. But now that you've saved her, she belongs to you." Saris sighed and followed the same routine, giving her a firm slap. To his surprise, she didn't even flinch, only grinned. "Hero, could you do that again?" The system chimed. Target remained silent. Player immobilized for 5 minutes. Under both women's startled gazes, Saris froze in place and toppled backward like a statue. Yog immediately rushed to him. "Master, she needs my blood to survive. If not, she might collapse and die." Without hesitation, Yog leaned over him and began transferring blood. Sathos blinked in disbelief. A second later, she snapped furiously, "You shameless lizard. Get off him now." She couldn't believe the creature dared touch him first, but Yog's tail coiled tightly around her. This is between her and her master. If you want to help, wait your turn. Gritting her teeth, Sathos realized recovering the system was more important than jealousy. She broke free from Yog's grip. Leaning close to Saris's ear, she whispered, "Hero, since I'm enjoying this so much, why not let her join in? You don't mind, do you?" Feeling her breath against his ear, Saris frowned. Something about this woman's behavior felt off, like she was deliberately trying to get close to him. But Sathos wasn't done. To push her plan forward, she boldly reached toward the area below his waist. The familiarity of that motion made Saris's eyes widen. Remembering that Sathos' coordinates had vanished nearby, he began to realize a terrifying truth. At first, Sathos couldn't understand why the way people looked at her had suddenly changed. It wasn't until she realized she'd used an instinctive gesture that she finally understood her identity had been exposed. With a thunderous crash, she summoned Shadiel and blasted open a wall to flee the scene. The commotion also terrified Yog. Just as Yog reverted to her true form and sought protection, Saris was finally freed from immobilization by the system. But the thought that Sathos had approached him in a female guise made him resolve to keep his distance from the opposite sex. On the way back, however, he ran straight into Saris and the others who had come searching for him. Saris produced a warrant and ordered Saris to come along. Deus stepped forward and blocked them, saying the guild had already verified the dungeon's true situation and that the warrant in Sirius's hand would be revoked. To everyone's surprise, Sirius slapped her across the face. "Who do you think you are? Stopping me from doing my job? Do you want me to drag you in and interrogate you as well?" Seeing this, Sirius calmed Deus and told her to fetch the vice president to resolve the matter. He also told her he would deal with those men later and avenge her. In an interrogation room not long after, Sirius snarled, "If I hadn't ambushed him from behind, he wouldn't still be wrapped in bandages. Are you ready to die?" But when Sirius retorted that those who run from battle have no right to shout at him, Sirius ordered his lackeys to fetch a hammer, threatening to make Sirius feel what it's like to lose a hand. Sirius frowned. He'd lost all his strength. He couldn't use the system, and the secretary wouldn't return in time. He'd likely have to take it head-on. Suddenly, Yag in his pocket spoke up. "Master, don't worry. He can't hurt you. She already drained some of your essence and regained a bit of mana. She can handle your human tortures." But once they got home, Sirius planned to let her suck to her heart's content. With Yag's assurance, Sirius braced himself to endure Sirius's torment. At that moment, the interrogation room door was flung open. Charlton stood holding the notice that revoked the arrest warrant. Sirius not only refused to stop, he barked to his men to leave quickly and pretend they hadn't heard anything. He snatched up his hammer again and shouted, "You brat, don't think the revocation saves you. Today you'll learn what happens when you cross me." The hammer came down hard onto Sirius's hand, but Sirius showed no sign of pain. Instead, cracks spidered across the hammer surface. Sirius stared in disbelief, thinking, "This can't be. Why isn't he hurt?" Refusing to accept it, he swung the hammer again, only for the interrogation room door to be kicked open. Charlton strode in, brandishing the revocation notice. "You, as a captain, are abusing private punishment," he snapped, looking at Sirius as if to say, "Do you still want to be captain?" Sirius froze. He couldn't fathom why a mere F-rank hero had drawn the vice president of the guild personally. He immediately began to protest, claiming he hadn't received the notice, and tried to summon others to back him up. Faced with the vice president's overwhelming presence, everyone in the room shrank back in fear. Unexpectedly, Sirius spoke up. "Lord Charlton, he indeed did not receive the revocation notice. I could let their arrest go, but they must apologize to the secretary." Deus was stunned. She had never expected this man to stand up for her. What she didn't know was that Sirius was doing this to complete his weapon return quest, and the people present conveniently made up the 9 unlucky targets. As the others screamed, a small smile crept across Deus's face. Having said his piece, Sirius grabbed Sirius and told him that settled the secretary's grievance. "Now it's your turn." Sirius screamed as his other arm was forcibly bent into an unnatural angle. Later, Charlton explained that he'd come both to resolve Sirius's trouble and to escort him to his special banquet. The envoys of the Holy Church were expected to arrive that night, bringing with them purification magic said to cleanse all kinds of toxins. Soon after, Charlton entered the Grand Hall first. Beside him stood the saintess of the Holy Church. Realizing that many men were staring at her curves, the saintess stopped and declared, "Our church exists to purify the world of evil desires. But to understand evil, one must first confront it, even wear it. So, ignorant humans, take back those filthy gazes." Hearing this, Charlton immediately ordered everyone to slap themselves. The saintess, however, raised her hand and stopped him. She said calmly, "If such thoughts deserve punishment, then none of you are innocent, except for the vice chairman." Charlton blinked in confusion and asked why. The saintess replied, "Because though your heart trembled, your body showed no reaction." The hall fell into awkward silence. Charlton flushed red and stammered that he was simply a man of purity. Behind him, however, several people exchanged knowing looks. Rumors had long said the vice chairman was less than capable, and this only confirmed it. Meanwhile, Days led Sirius toward the banquet hall. She explained that the Holy Church's purification magic could not only heal severed limbs, but also dispel poisons from a body. For that reason, every regional guild wanted cooperation, yet most were refused for being impure. Hearing that, Sirius thought the saintess might even be able to repair his injured fingers. and decided to take a chance. As he stepped into the hall, he noticed everyone gathered at the center, eyes fixed on something ahead. Charlton appeared and explained that the Saintess was about to conduct a purity test. The massive crystal on stage would reveal each participant's level of purity. Whoever passed this test would secure the guild's partnership with the Holy Church. After hearing the explanation, everyone was left puzzled. No one could figure out what was hiding behind that curtain. Then the captain of Squad 7, Logan, stepped forward, volunteering to go first. He declared loudly that he had a clear conscience and feared nothing behind the veil. The Saintess responded with a faint, knowing smile. But the moment Logan stepped inside, he froze on the spot. A few meters ahead stood a cat girl, holding a skirt between her teeth. The cat girl began walking toward him, her tail swaying playfully. Logan gulped hard. As the cat girl let out a soft, seductive meow, the skirt slipped from her mouth and fell to the floor. Seeing this, Logan thought to himself that luck must finally be smiling on him. But the cat girl teased him, asking if he really wanted to touch her. When Logan shamelessly answered yes, her expression suddenly darkened. A second later, Logan was thrown out of the curtain like a rag doll. The crystal above glowed, showing a corruption level of 88%. The Saintess sighed inwardly. Even a captain was this impure. The others couldn't be much better. Someone shouted that whatever was inside was dangerous. The captain of Squad 6, Owen, clenched his fists confidently, claiming that whatever lurked inside, his strength would handle it easily. Yet 5 seconds later, Owen was flung out, nose bleeding profusely. Seeing his blissful expression, the crowd's curiosity about what lay inside only grew stronger. Time passed, and the Saintess's patience began to wear thin. Nearly everyone had taken the test, and not a single person met her standards. Finally, the last participant, Saris, stepped forward with a serious look. "Demons or devils, whatever you are in there, wait for me. I'll deal with you myself." With that, he entered the curtain without looking back. Before Saris could even see what was inside, a cat girl appeared and threw herself into his arms. In a soft, seductive tone, she asked, "Hero, don't you want to take me home?" But before she could finish, a large hand appeared before her eyes. With a loud bang, the cat girl was sent flying backward. "Another woman trying to get close to me. Huh?" Saris muttered coldly. "Sadhos, you really think I'll fall for the same trick again?" The cat girl stared at him in disbelief. It was the first time in her life that a man had ever pushed her away. Outside, the Saintess noticed something astonishing. The crystal now displayed a purity level of 0% corruption. Saris looked at the pitiful cat girl before him, fully aware that Spear of Oblivion could only be used once. If he chose the wrong target, death would surely follow. The cat girl, meanwhile, was still stunned by his rejection. She could feel his gaze on her body, yet there was no hint of lust, only calm focus and a faint trace of hostility. That realization infuriated her. His indifference was somehow more insulting than lust. Determined, she vowed to make this human's heart waver no matter what. Stretching out her arms, she purred, "Hero, if you've got the wrong idea about me, my embrace will surely change your mind." But the next instant, she realized she'd grabbed nothing but air. She turned. Saris was already standing several meters away. Unwilling to give up, she lunged again. "Don't be shy. One hug, and everything between us will disappear." Faced with her relentless advance, Saris quickly came up with a counter. If he slid beneath her from below, he could dodge the hug and confirm whether she was truly female. But his move didn't escape the cat girl's sharp eyes. As he landed, a strange thought flashed through her mind. He's even bleeding from a nose. Yet why do I still not feel any lust coming from him? Confused, she blurted out every question running through her head. Sarah straightened up and replied with a serious face, "Because I'm a man of integrity." Under the astonished gaze of the cat girl, Saris launched into a speech. "From the moment we were born, it was a mother's milk that let us grow strong. That's why, out of gratitude, even if I keep looking at you, I would never have any impure thoughts." The cat girl froze in disbelief. She felt that the light radiating from this man was almost blinding. With a hint of sadness, she murmured, "Looks like my level is still far from enough. I passed the test. You can go now." Watching the cat girl move by reason alone, Saris confirmed she wasn't Sadhos in disguise. Still, He left a quiet goodbye and walked straight toward the exit without turning back. Seeing him pass the purity test with 0% impurity, everyone whispered that either the guy was completely hopeless or the crystal was broken. Only the saintess was certain. This was the very man she'd been searching for. When Saris asked if she could use purification magic to detoxify himself, the saint decisively agreed at once. She ordered everyone in the hall to leave. When the hall became completely empty, the saint, sitting on the chair, gestured for Saris to lie down before her. Although he didn't understand this strange detox method, Saris still obeyed and lay down quietly. Perhaps noticing his doubt, the saint explained that their evolution magic was granted by the church. From the moment they become saints, all emotions and desires are stripped away in exchange for powerful evolutionary magic. But since each person casts magic from a different part of the body, her purification magic happens to be on the soles of her feet, so it can only be performed through stepping. Then the saint raised her fair foot and warned that during the purification process, Saris must not let any impure thought arise, or the magic would lose its power. After Saris gave his word, the saint began her detox ritual. The chair was too small and limited her movements. She had to press her foot against Saris's face for support. Luckily, he felt no sinful thoughts, only the pressure against his cheek. As the saint guided him step by step, Saris suddenly found himself entering a special space. Before he could grasp what was happening, a giant foot descended straight toward him from above. Under the crushing pressure, he instinctively pushed it away. Soon, the saint's voice echoed, "Do not resist her foot. It's a projection of my evolution magic. Once I pull you out of the water, your fingers will be completely healed." Just as the saint was about to pull Saris out of the water, countless black threads quickly wrapped around him. From the saint's words, he learned that these were the very source of the toxins inside his body, and she was about to pull him out all at once. However, the saint seemed to have underestimated how slippery the silk was, and Saris almost got dragged back into the water. Thinking fast, he began biting down, knowing only that way could he stay firmly fixed against her toes. At the moment his body completely left the water, in reality, the melted fingers were indeed restored. Seeing this, Saris widened his eyes. It felt almost miraculous to be reborn like this. Before long, under the saint's repeated technique, even his toes returned to normal. But since the root of the poison hadn't been expelled, the saint said she would send him back underwater to force the toxins to the surface where they'd vanish completely. Yet the moment he re-entered the water, Saris's body began to glow with golden light. The system, mistaken as the toxin, started to resist the saint's actions. As the system displayed a target-locked alert, the saint froze for a moment, wondering why her body felt so strange. Still, she didn't dwell on it and continued moving her fair foot, intent on removing the toxin completely. Seeing Saris's body entangled in black threads, the saint reminded him those were the physical forms of his inner will and said she would create a shield to help him break through. With a sharp tearing sound, the black threads around his arm were instantly ripped apart. With the shield's protection, his bound body was completely freed. Regaining focus, Saris swam straight toward the core of the toxin as instructed by the saint. But before he could reach it, cracks suddenly appeared on the nearby magic shield. Seeing it wouldn't hold for long, he shouted to the saint, "Your barrier, it's leaking water." Hearing that, the saint sensed impure thoughts emerging and immediately warned, "You fool. If you want the purification to work, stop thinking such strange things." In the water, Saris could barely move as countless black threads wrapped tightly around his body again. Seeing this, the saint moved her feet faster, desperate to repair the shield. Yet she didn't realize that a faint blush had quietly spread across her cheeks. As the shield failed to recover, a wave of suffocation rushed through Saris's mind. When he opened his eyes again, he had already returned to the real world. To his surprise, the saint's lips curved into a faint smile. From her expression, it was clear she was still lost in the fantasy of restoring the barrier. Only when Saris's voice echoed in her mind did she finally snap out of her trance. Once she realized that Saris had returned from the spiritual realm to reality, the saint clutched her pounding chest and came to a single conclusion. She had given in to impure thoughts, causing her evolution magic to fail. Since this matter concerned the honor of the Holy Church, she pretended to stay calm and told him the source of the toxin inside him was too strong, requiring long-term treatment. Then she stood up and reminded him again that she would return to find a cure for him, and that he could visit the Holy Church anytime. Her name was Lilia. With that, she turned and left the hall without looking back. Watching her hurried figure fade away, Saris realized one thing. To complete the purification quickly, he must find Sartos himself. Meanwhile, at a corner of the corridor, the saint leaned weakly against the wall. She couldn't understand. Her emotions had long been stripped away, so why was her heart still giving rise to desire? At the same time, inside the Hero Guild, Sirius's older brother Darren was scolding him as a useless fool who couldn't even handle a simple revenge. But after seeing his brother's ruined hands, Darren threw a document in front of Sirius. He explained that it was a map of the A-rank dungeon Shia. That dungeon had already been cleared by heroes from other regions. If Sirius led a team and landed the finishing blow on the boss Shia, he could keep his position as captain. Hearing this, Sirius lit up with excitement, swearing that this time he would complete the mission. What he didn't know was that the dying Shia was being fed the blood of a demon god by Sardos. In just moments, Shia was fully revived, and her power had risen to a whole new level. When Shia asked how she could repay such kindness, Sardos replied casually, "It's simple. Just kill one human for me." Meanwhile, after Saris passed the trial of the church's saint, Charlton told him he had done great merit and could ask for any reward he wished. Without hesitation, Saris asked for the position of captain. That way, he would have free access to the dungeons. He could also use the remaining 49 days to track down and kill Sardos. However, Charlton explained that the guild was short on staff, and the promotion process would take at least 2.5 days. Unexpectedly, Daisy leaned over and said she could help. She'd have it done and deliver by noon. She said it was her way of thanking him for helping her beat up Sirius last time. But when Saris got home, the entire doorway was blocked by Yug, wearing women's clothes, greeting her master back home. All the housework had been finished, and she had eaten all the food. Then she grabbed Saris and pressed him in her arms, insisting he praise her for being obedient and thoughtful. After hearing what she wanted, Yug asked again, since she was so useful, could she stay here forever? Saris was surprised and asked if she didn't want to go home. Yug placed her hand on his cheek and said that beasts like her only had lairs, not homes. Hearing that, Saris understood something and told her that this would be her home from now on, but no one must ever know she was a monster. Naturally, that made Yug overjoyed, and the system popped up a message. Her affection had reached 100%. Any further interactions with her would now give triple the growth bonus. Just as Saris was feeling astonished, Yug suddenly pinned him against the wall. "Master, back in the dungeon, I took several hits for you. I told you I'd pay you back double." Hearing that, Saris frowned, sensing something bad was about to happen. A sharp tearing sound followed. His shirt was ripped open in an instant. "Master, I'll start now." As she spoke, Yug bared her sharp fangs and bit down. It wasn't the first time he'd endured such torment, but this time his stats rose dramatically. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Saris quickly realized it must be the secretary bringing his promotion notice. He hurriedly told Yug to hide in the kitchen. Only after confirming she had vanished down the hallway, Saris finally opened the door, and this time Daisy not only brought him his captain's ID card, but also a large basket of fruit as a thank you gift. Soon, voices echoed in the hallway, and Yug, eavesdropping from the wall, immediately grew displeased. She could tell it was a woman's voice, and one that seemed close to her master. Just as Daisy blushed and said he could ask her for help anytime if he ever needed it, Yug's towering figure suddenly appeared behind them. You two seem to be getting along pretty well. Daisy froze, completely shocked that someone else was in the house, and that her figure was far beyond her own. Saris panicked, afraid Yug's identity as a beast might be exposed. But when he turned around, he saw that Yug had somehow taken on a human form. The next moment, Yug leaned close and said, "She's my good sister, right? My dear brother." The intimate act made Daisy's face turn red. She thought to herself, what kind of siblings act like that? With a cold snort, she snatched her gift back. Then, puffing her cheeks in anger, she muttered a goodbye. Turning around, She tossed the fruit straight into the trash bin. Seeing his food gone, Yug just laughed happily and asked if her transformation magic wasn't impressive. Saris decided that finding Sardos was still more important, so he let it go and told Yug to take good care of the house. Then he put on his armor and prepared to head for the dungeon. But as he opened the door, he saw the same fruit Daisy had taken now sitting neatly at his doorstep. On top of it was a small note, reading the word Humph on it. Saris looked puzzled, completely unaware of the crossed-out words on the back. After some time, Saris and his team finally arrived at the dungeon where Shia resided. In his mind, with the intel his brother had given him, the reward for slaying the boss was rightfully his. After all, the guild's rule was simple. Whoever's team defeated the boss first would claim all the dungeon's resources. Meanwhile, Saris learned from his system panel that Sartos was currently deep within another dungeon. When he reached the destination, he happened to encounter Saris's team. Seeing Saris immediately demanded to know what he was doing there. Upon hearing that Saris had come alone to slay monsters, Saris froze, assuming Saris knew that Shia was already near death and had come to steal the kill. How greedy. Thinking that, he instantly ordered his team to speed up, determined not to let anyone else take the credit. Saris, however, stared at the system's message. If he pulled out that sword, the left and right paths ahead would switch, and he could freely open or close the traps. Saris sneered, mocking him. Idiot, that sword can't be pulled out. Guess my intel's more useful than yours. But before anyone could respond, a deafening dragon's roar shook the air. Saris's eyes widened in shock. On the dragon's back stood a slender female figure. Without using any weapons, she struck the dragon with her bare fists, slamming it straight into the ground. The massive creature lay before them, barely breathing. Cold sweat poured down Saris's back. He couldn't comprehend who that woman was, someone capable of defeating a dragon with her own hands. Soon, they realized who she was, the S-rank hero from Zone K, Daphne. Daphne asked coldly why a hero from Zone Z was here. Saris didn't dare to breathe too loudly. Not only was she from the same organization as his brother, but he was also trespassing into another zone's dungeon. He quickly offered to cooperate with her to defeat the dungeon's boss together. But Daphne gave him a frosty look and replied, "I never team up with the weak." Just then, a distress call came through Daphne's earpiece. She coldly said, "You'd all better disappear before I return. I don't want to see anyone here, or I'll personally throw you out." The next instant, she burst into motion and vanished from sight. Saris couldn't help but sigh in awe. That woman could actually fly. Saris seized the opportunity and dashed into the dungeon's left entrance, determined to strike the final blow on Shia before anyone else. He even made sure to damage the entry mechanism. As the massive gate slowly fell shut, he told his teammates that all the credit would be theirs later. Since the entrance was sealed, Saris had no choice but to pull out the sword embedded in the ground. Though he barely managed to draw it out, the effort drained nearly 10,000 mana points. When the system displayed the message Dark Fortress Scepter obtained, Saris lifted the sword and headed toward the opposite path. Meanwhile, Saris sneered, convinced that, according to his brother's intel, the other route was full of monsters. Saris was walking straight to his death. Yet he didn't notice the red shapes moving ahead, until one of his teammates shouted for him to look forward. Only then did he see a massive swarm of monsters charging straight toward them. At the same time, deep within the dungeon, Sartos said to Shia, "Don't let her down." Shia's body began to radiate a terrifying aura, her power multiplying several times over. Knowing how the system worked, Sartos had even replaced all the monsters in the dungeon with males. As for Saris and his team, they were already fleeing in terror, unable to understand why this route had suddenly filled with so many beasts. As Saris tried to reach the exit to escape, he found that the gate had already been sealed by his own doing. His intel only included how to close the door, not how to open it. He cursed under his breath, realizing his brother had doomed him this time. With no other choice, he fought desperately against the monsters, unaware that all of this was caused by the Dark Fortress Scepter's hidden influence. Meanwhile, Saris advanced smoothly all the way to the boss chamber. At a glance, he recognized the monster. It was Samashia. He immediately asked whether Sartos was hiding inside. The creature replied, "I'll take your head to my goddess, Sartos." Saris froze. "Wait, You don't actually think Sartos is a woman, do you? But to Shia, Sartos possessed a stunning figure, fair skin, and even a faint fragrance on the body. If that wasn't a woman, what else could it be? Saris didn't bother arguing and activated the Dark Fortress Scepter, launching his attack. Yet when the massive axe came crashing down, the empowered Shia shattered it with a single blow. He roared in anger that Saris dared call his goddess a man. Clearly, he had never witnessed her beauty. After several fierce exchanges, the Dark Fortress Scepter was cut apart. Even when Saris used Instant Slash and his clone to block, it barely held. Each of Shia's attacks pushed him to his limits. Amid the shock, Saris realized this was the strongest monster he had ever faced. Within moments, he was sent flying, slammed deep into the wall. I can't win. There's no way I can win. Meanwhile, Saris, who had narrowly escaped death, was once again attacked by monsters. Facing a foe far beyond his strength, he could only scream in despair. Someone, please help me. The next second, the massive stone elephant before him collapsed with a thunderous crash. A figure landed before them and said coldly, "Was it you who called for help?" Seeing who it was, the team was stunned. They never expected Daphne to appear here, much less destroy that terrifying beast with a single strike. After confirming it was indeed their cry, Daphne immediately kicked Saris hard. What kind of trash comes out of Zone Z? Heroes trembling before monsters? Pathetic. If the world relied on weaklings like you, it would have been overrun by beasts long ago. Get lost. If you still want to call yourself a hero, go train for another 2.5 years before coming back. As the team scurried away in shame, Daphne quickly locked onto the boss chamber's location. To save time, she chose the shortest route, smashing straight through the walls. A series of deafening crashes echoed through the dungeon. Daphne would reach the battlefield in 30 seconds. But by then, Saris was already at his limit. What could he do? Shia was a male beast. There was no way to draw strength from him. Saris knew that without a female beast presence, this fight was lost. Suddenly, the wall beside him exploded. Seeing Daphne appear right before him, Saris couldn't help but feel relief. He was finally saved. But to his surprise, Daphne merely gave him a cold glance and said, "Get out." Useless heroes from Zone Z only get in the way. Saris immediately locked onto Daphne through the system and explained that this boss was far stronger than expected. They should fight together. Daphne felt utterly insulted. She grabbed him by the collar and snapped, "Are you deaf? This monster is mine to handle. You worthless Zone Z reject. Get lost before I make you regret it." But in the next instant, Daphne suddenly leaned forward and kissed him. The system instantly displayed a message. Attack power increased. Daphne's eyes widened in shock. What the hell did I just do? Why did I kiss him? Realizing her first kiss was gone, she swung her fist at Saris in fury. From afar, Shia roared in outrage. "Are you two seriously flirting in the middle of the fight? Do you think I'm invisible?" Saris took the chance to leap forward and counterattack. As Shia's neck was sliced open, he could feel Saris's power had clearly risen. Daphne still hadn't recovered, convincing herself it must have been because they were too close. She didn't even notice the incoming slash heading straight for her. Thankfully, Saris reacted instantly, pulling her into his arms. Though they narrowly dodged the strike, Daphne's armor shattered on impact. Her face turned crimson. "Great. How am I supposed to fight like this now?" As Shia raised his sword again, Saris stepped forward to shield her. He didn't realize that his arm had pressed against something soft. Daphne froze, unable to move. The strange sensation overwhelmed her, and her arousal level spiked to 88%. Watching Saris still fighting desperately, Daphne clenched her fists. She knew she had to do something, or she'd just drag him down. Saris retreated to Daphne's side, telling her that his power alone wasn't enough to defeat the enemy. They had to fight together. Daphne looked defiant, saying she didn't need his help. She had always slain monsters on her own. However, since there were two monsters now, she agreed to handle one herself. That way, it wouldn't violate her principles. Saris suddenly wrapped his arm around her and said, "With you here, I know we can win this fight." He rushed forward to engage Shia head-on. Behind him, Daphne hesitated for a moment. If it had been before, she would have smashed him for touching her. Yet now, she found herself strangely drawn to him, her heart wanting to fight at his side. Meanwhile, Sardos suddenly coughed up blood. He knew that if he didn't finish Saris soon, this body without a heart wouldn't last much longer. He then formed a soul-devouring ore from his own energy and ordered Shothill to deliver it to Shia. Once consumed, Shia could temporarily seize Sardos' body and power. Though it would only last a minute, with Shia's physical vessel, Sardos could fool the system's mark and reclaim his heart within that brief window. Will a human die? Shothill asked quietly. Sardos' eyes turned cold and sharp. You seem to care quite a bit about that human, don't you? Shothill quickly denied it. No, I despise humans more than anything. Saying that, she turned and left without looking back. Yet in her heart, she remembered their first meeting, when Sardos had compared her to a guard dog. You're far more disgusting than any human, she thought bitterly. Meanwhile, even with Daphne's shared combat data, Saris was being completely overwhelmed by Shia. If Daphne hadn't stepped in to block the strike, he would have had at least 2.5 ribs broken. But soon after, Daphne herself was sent flying by Shia's next blow. Saris suddenly felt something soft pressing against his face, his cheeks squashed out of shape. Daphne quickly stood up, flustered. I'm sorry. That was an accident. She looked at him nervously. You're bleeding from your nose. Shia's voice boomed out. One strike, and you both die. A massive slash tore through the air. The entire battlefield exploded into rubble and dust. Shia grinned proudly at the destruction, convinced the two humans had been obliterated. But the attack had actually been blocked by Daphne. Her armor shattered completely, falling apart piece by piece. Seeing Saris gravely injured, she clutched her chest and ordered him to retreat, insisting she could handle the battle alone. Yet even as she spoke, her body moved closer to him on its own. Her mind raced for an excuse. Right? I'm just protecting a wounded ally. That's all. If you're not going to leave, she shouted, then come here and hold me tight. I don't want that monster seeing me exposed. When Saris just stood there stunned, Daphne wrapped her arms around him without hesitation. Smiling awkwardly, she thought, I'm an S-rank hero. Protecting the weak is what I'm supposed to do. A system alert flashed. Arousal level, 100%. All stats doubled upon contact. Shia, taking heavy damage from the surge, roared furiously. You two are unbelievable, hugging in the middle of a fight. Am I invisible to you? The attack was effortlessly dodged by Daphne. As for Saris, he felt a fierce wave of suffocation. If the system hadn't been spamming alerts about his combat growth, he wouldn't have lasted a single second. Daphne whispered for him not to overthink it, insisting she only hugged him to protect the wounded. Saris replied straight-faced that they were both pure of heart, and it was a necessary sacrifice to defeat the monster. Unknown to them, Shia heard those words and exploded in rage, pushing its power to the limit and splitting into 4 true god forms. Die. Today I will kill you, you dog couple. 11:59, after telling Saris to hold her tight, Daphne punched and sent the incoming blade flying. She then followed with a high kick that knocked aside another slash. Every one of her moves, however, caused Saris's stats to spike dramatically. Realizing normal attacks weren't working, Shia activated its binding skill. Sacrificing one clone, the core, and 2 other clones launched indiscriminate attacks to try to secure the kill on Saris and Daphne. Just as Daphne felt her stamina drain, the system popped. Saris had reached level 25, and all his stats rose by 15,000 points. The next moment, Saris broke free and said confidently, Now, it's my turn to strike. He unleashed the charge punch and landed it precisely on Shia. The blow sent Shia flying like a projectile. It smashed through the wall and crashed down in front of Shothill. Shothill stared in disbelief. Was Shia just knocked away by someone? Saris shielded the exhausted Daphne behind him and said, You rest. I'll protect you this time. With Shia's ultimate nearly unleashed, Saris clenched his fist and shouted, Taste my level, 25 fist. A thunderous boom echoed out. The incoming energy orb dissipated instantly. The shockwave tore Shia's clones apart on the spot. Daphne stood stunned, unable to understand how Saris, weak just moments ago, had suddenly gained such immense power. Even Shothill froze. murmuring to herself, "Have I really become this strong?" Then Sartos's cold voice echoed in her ear. "What are you waiting for? Give the blood soul orb to Shia." Yet in Shadow's eyes, the crimson orb began to look like a small green mushroom. She gritted her teeth, muttering, "To hell with you, Sartos. I'm done following your disgusting orders." Realizing her intent to destroy the orb, Sartos ruthlessly snapped his own wrist. Because their bodies were still in resonance, Shadow's wrist shattered at the same time. A moment later, Sartos appeared in person. He snatched the blood soul orb and, in an instant, forced it into Shia's mouth. The next second, Shia's body began to convulse violently. Before Ceres's shocked eyes, Shia's form twisted and transformed into that of Sartos himself. Not only that, two identical Sartos clones appeared beside him, and within seconds, the entire room was filled with countless copies of Sartos. Ceres didn't understand how it was possible, but since the system had locked onto the real Sartos, he quickly opened the interface to confirm. To his horror, the system message read, "All of these are real." Sartos muttered to himself, "Within 1 minute, I'll take back the heart you stole from me." Daphne charged forward to attack, but her strike was effortlessly blocked, and she was smashed into the wall by an overwhelming force. Seeing Daphne fall unconscious, Ceres's expression hardened. He knew only the Spear of Oblivion could kill Sartos, but with every clone being real, that move was useless. As he searched for a solution, the many Sartos drew in closer. "You may be immune to my attacks," one said coldly, "but there is still one way to make you die." Ceres was slammed to the ground by Sartos, unable to move. One of the Sartos clones walked over slowly and said coldly, "Pleasure isn't damage. The system can't stop that. Now, then, let's take that heart out of your body." Hearing that, Ceres's pupils widened in horror. "I'll not play your kind of fencing game," he shouted. Sartos smirked, his tone dripping with malice. "Relax. I'll soon find out whether I'm interested in you or not." Just as Ceres was about to lose all hope, Shatil suddenly flashed in, slamming into Sartos and knocking him aside. "Run," she yelled. "This multiform state of his only lasts 10 seconds. Just don't let him grab you." With her help, Ceres managed to break free from the restraint. Enraged, Sartos turned toward Shatil. "Why are you helping that human? Don't you realize this decides whether we live or die?" Shatil replied coldly, "Let's just say I'm repaying a favor to that mushroom." Sartos's expression darkened. "You betrayed me one too many times. You no longer deserve to exist." At that moment, a system alert popped up, affinity with Shatil, 100%. Without hesitation, Ceres activated the system's relocation function. A flash of blue light enveloped Shatil, and her figure vanished from sight. When she reappeared, she found herself beside Yug, who was busy cleaning the house. Shatil blinked in confusion. She couldn't understand why she was still alive or why Yug was wearing a maid outfit. Meanwhile, Sartos looked utterly bewildered, realizing he could no longer sense Shatil's presence. But remembering his true goal, reclaiming his heart, he stopped caring and resumed the spell he had started. Seeing Ceres struggle to lift Shia's weapon, Sartos immediately stepped forward and sneered. "You think another weapon will let you beat her? Better surrender now." The next second, Ceres vanished from right before him. It turned out that holding the weapon allowed him to use the skill, Instant Slash, to strike. Sartos mocked, "Your strength can't hurt me. An Instant Slash has a 10-second cooldown. Don't think you can run away with that trick." With that, he sent his clones lunging at Ceres. But to his shock, Ceres's form disappeared again. Sartos froze. It wasn't even 10 seconds, so how could Ceres trigger the system skill again? Ceres smiled and explained, "Don't you get it? Your clones are treated by the system as entirely new entities. I can keep locking onto your clones and use Instant Slash. If you want to catch me, you'll have to dispel the clones. Otherwise, we can keep playing this game forever." Hearing that, Sartos lost his composure. He hadn't expected his tactic to backfire. A surge of humiliation flooded him. If he couldn't catch Ceres, then even fleeing to another body wouldn't save him from the system's hunt. With that thought, he erupted with all his power. He leapt, smashing through the wall and charging outward. Sartos's body began to emit a strange, eerie light. At the same moment, his form started to disintegrate. The next second, his body burst apart like a firework. Soon after, his former concubines each received a shard, accompanied by a voice. "My concubines, I give my power and blood soul to you. Kill the human who seeks me, and then restore me." Just as Sarah stood there stunned, the system panel suddenly popped up. A notification read, "New quest started. Collect Sarto's shards to slow the toxin and increase life." The system also warned that remaining lifespan was only 48 days and 6 hours. Though the clash with Sartos had paused for now, Saris knew this was only the beginning. To survive, he must keep gathering the scattered shards. While he pondered, Daphne finally came to. Seeing her badly hurt, Saris immediately decided to take her to a hospital for treatment. Outside the dungeon, Saris complained to his subordinates that it was over. They'd return with nothing, and he couldn't explain it to his brother, nor keep his captain's post. Suddenly, a subordinate noticed two figures emerging from the dungeon. Saris was stunned. He hadn't expected Saris to come out with Daphne, and to have apparently cleared the dungeon. He quickly thought of a solution and approached Daphne, asking politely if she could share some credit with Saris. Daphne grew even quieter. She had no memory of what happened after being knocked out by the beast. Saris immediately invented an excuse in his head. Shia must have been too strong. Even Daphne couldn't defeat it alone. He planned to pin the blame on someone else, so he could keep his captaincy. With that in mind, he pointed at Saris and publicly accused him of dragging Daphne down, saying Saris must take full responsibility for the failed mission. Before his words finished, a fist flew straight at him. The next second, Saris was knocked flat by Daphne's punch. She warned coldly that she'd never seen such shamelessness and told him to stay away. See him once, hit him once. After finishing everything, Daphne turned to Saris and said her stamina had mostly recovered. She could handle her wounds herself. But she suddenly stopped, glared at him, and warned coldly, "If anyone else hears what happened in that dungeon, I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth and beat you into paste." Without waiting for a reply, she leapt and vanished from sight. Yet even in midair, Daphne couldn't calm down. Scenes from the dungeon kept replaying in her mind. The next day, at the Bertrand Manor, Daphne trained furiously, punching with all her strength, trying to erase the memories through sheer effort. But no matter how hard she pushed herself, those images refused to fade. Just as she thought she needed to train harder to distract herself, a mocking voice cut through the air. "Dear sister, I heard your mission to defeat Shia failed, and that an S-rank rookie helped you out of the dungeon. You've always worked alone. Could he be special to you?" Daphne's expression darkened. She ordered the intruder to leave, but Daly pretended not to hear. "My dear sister, anger makes you ugly," she teased. "Maybe that's why you only developed muscles, not brains." Instead of getting angry, Daphne countered calmly, "Whether you have a brain or not, I don't care. But looking at that tiny figure of yours, you definitely didn't develop anywhere else, little sister." Daly's face turned crimson with rage. She ordered the butler to punish Daphne, but he refused, saying he couldn't lay hands on the eldest daughter. Fuming, Daly turned on her heel and stormed out. She had already devised a perfect revenge to take away everything Daphne loved, including that weak little hero, Saris. Elsewhere, Saris encountered a familiar figure. It was Lilia, who had reported his poisoning to the High Priestess. This time, she came under the orders of Seraphina, the leader of the Holy Church, inviting Saris to receive treatment. But just as they arrived at the destination, Lilia suddenly looked conflicted. The next moment, she reached out to stop him. "Saris, wait, don't go in." Hearing that, Saris instinctively turned around. But Lilia quickly forced a smile. "It's nothing. You must have misheard." As Saris pushed open the grand door, the first thing he saw was a pair of long legs clad in black silk. She was Seraphina, the supreme pontiff of the Holy Church. She calmly stated she wished to speak with him on equal terms. Then she crossed her legs gracefully and said, "Come, sit here." Seeing that, Saris swallowed hard without realizing it. Seraphina began, her voice calm but powerful. "The poison in your body was caused by the blood of the demon god Sartos. When a beast consumes it, it gains immense strength. But a human who does so will melt away instantly." She explained that since Saris's body had fused with the toxin, it would slowly corrode him. just as he was about to ask if she could cure it. Serafina pressed her black silken foot firmly against him. When I'm speaking, she whispered, do not make a sound. She leaned closer, her breath brushing his ear. If your blood is ever consumed by another beast, humanity would face a catastrophe. To prevent that from happening, she said softly, I'll be the one to consume you. Realizing what was happening, Ceres quickly stepped back to widen the distance. He thought to himself that this high priestess was far from ordinary. Though human, she wanted to eat him. The next second, he froze. Vines sprouted from Serafina's back, twisting like living serpents. She was a beast standing on the side of humanity. For a fleeting moment, Ceres wondered if letting her devour him might really save the world. But he immediately shook off the thought, locking onto her with the system and drawing a weapon card. The card revealed a glove called Angel of Ecstasy. According to its description, it could unleash a shockwave upon touching an enemy's body and trigger a lethal move if contact was made at the right point. At that moment, Serafina produced a fragment of Sartos and said calmly, only this shard in my possession can keep you alive. Then she placed the shard into her mouth. In an instant, her beastly form intensified and the ends of her vines grew serrated, like blades ready to tear through flesh. Once I consume you, she declared devoutly, I will gain absolute power. Humanity will kneel before the Holy Church. All those with impure thoughts or defiled hearts shall be eaten and reborn through me. I long for that spotless, sinless world. As soon as she finished speaking, Serafina unleashed her vines in a sudden attack. But just a split second before they struck, Ceres reacted swiftly and dodged aside. He pressed his hand against one of the vines, since it was part of her body. Sure enough, the system flashed, stat +1. Without hesitation, Ceres decided to test the power of the glove shockwave. Yet the supposedly powerful attack failed to harm Serafina at all. He realized then that to truly hurt her, he'd have to touch other parts of her body. But before he could act, one of her vines silently coiled around him. In the next moment, Serafina pulled him close, whispering, now, then, where should I start eating? Seeing the wound on his shoulder, she frowned almost regretfully. Such a waste. I shouldn't let this go unused. Then she lowered her head and began to drink from the wound. Just as I thought, your blood is no different from Sartos's. Such intoxicating power, no beast could resist it. As Ceres stared in horror, the vines behind her grew thicker and more ferocious. Struggling to avoid being devoured, Ceres reached out desperately, searching for any chance to counter. Seeing his hand move toward her, Serafina shouted angrily, you wretch, I'm about to eat you, and you still dare to touch me? How shameless. Luckily, the glove triggered a shockwave just in time, blasting her back and freeing him. Yet with only 15% charge remaining, the attack barely damaged her vines. As Serafina healed her wounds, she noticed something. His actions weren't driven by lust or corruption. While she hesitated, Ceres appeared right before her eyes. I'm fighting for humanity's freedom, he shouted. There's no such wicked desire in my heart. Before Ceres could touch Serafina's vital point, she snapped her legs together, trapping his hand between them. His eyes widened. His freedom had just been sealed away. Twisting her body slightly, Serafina hissed, since you can't control that hand, I'll help you break it. In a desperate attempt to pull free, Ceres jerked his arm. The sudden movement made Serafina tremble, her composure cracking, and the system chimed. Glove charge plus 14%. With a furious kick, she sent him sprawling to the floor. Serafina's entire body trembled with rage. That insolent human had dared to touch her inside the Holy Church. Enraged, she decided to end the fight immediately. For vines lashed towards Ceres all at once. In that instant, a reckless idea struck him. If he could endure her attacks, he could build up contact energy and unleash the glove's full potential. In a flash, he appeared behind her. Freedom, he muttered under his breath. Finally, I've got it. But when Serafina showed no reaction at all, he froze. The feeling wasn't right. Wait, is this not where? Serafina's voice thundered behind him. Let go, you shameless creature. A powerful kick sent Ceres flying across the hall. As he fell, he saw a monstrous mouth lunging toward him. Instinctively, He prepared to use his remaining charge to blast it away. But then, he noticed something odd about the shape of that mouth. And instead of resisting, he stopped struggling, letting it swallow him whole. Watching him disappear, Seraphina sneered. So quick to surrender? How pitiful. What Seraphina didn't realize was that Ceres's hand was still pressed against the inner wall of her vine. The slick, ridged surface beneath his fingers made it clear. This was the perfect spot to charge the glove. He drew his hand sharply across it. Seraphina's entire body convulsed, her mind reeling as if she had taken a critical hit worth 10,000 points. The system flashed. Charge increased to 25%. She grit her teeth in fury. What in the world was that human doing inside her? After she had swallowed him with her vine, his strange movements inside caused her whole body to tremble uncontrollably, forcing her to spit him out. That humiliating sensation made Seraphina realize one thing. She had to kill this man before eating him again. If he touched the inside of her vines once more, she might lose control entirely. The next moment, the tips of her vines sprouted sharp, jaw-like edges. With a single strike, they shattered Ceres's armor into pieces. Though her attacks were faster than ever, Ceres quickly found a counter. If he could get his hand back inside, he could both test the charge level and slow her movements. Without hesitation, he plunged his hand into the gaping, flower-like mouth. "You insolent brat!" Seraphina roared, her face flushed with rage. "Enough already! Get your filthy hands off me!" Suddenly, a spike shot from within the vine, piercing toward his chest. Ceres grabbed it with both hands and activated the glove shockwave. The blast erupted violently, tearing through the vine. Seraphina froze, realizing at last. Each time his right hand touched her, it released that same shockwave, and the power was growing stronger every time. Seizing her momentary hesitation, Ceres charged without hesitation. "For the freedom of humanity, you won't stop me from searching every inch of you." Seraphina's lip twitched. How can you put on that righteous face and say something so vulgar? She snapped. Before Ceres could touch her, Seraphina unleashed a thick cloud of purple smoke. Inside the haze, Ceres lost track of her position and felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. While he hesitated, vines burst from a mist and lunged at him. They began to feed on his blood as soon as they made contact. In a blink, the vines retreated back into the fog with a swift whoosh. Seraphina's voice floated through the haze. "Soon you won't be able to move." She taunted, "Your right hand seems to trigger those light waves on contact. But what will you do if you can't reach her?" No sooner had she spoken than a vine reemerged and clamped down on one of Ceres's hands. He thought this might be another chance to touch her. Instead, he was hurled through the air. Seraphina sneered, "Your body's tough. It didn't even bite off your left hand. Besides, you've inhaled so much of the toxin, you'll be paralyzed soon." As she predicted, Ceres found himself unable to mount any effective resistance against the following assault. Seraphina grinned wickedly. "Don't worry. Once I bite off your left hand, I'll savor your blood slowly." Ceres wiped the blood from his lip and retorted coldly, "You've got it wrong. The glove generates the shock waves, not my right hand." In fact, while she spoke, he had already slipped the glove onto his left hand. Then he lunged and dragged his hand across her vine with brutal force. Seraphina screamed, a howl of agony ripping from her throat. Following the sound, Ceres locked onto her position and shouted, "Found you. Nowhere left to run." Though the beast resembled a human, its internal layout wasn't so different. If he gripped the right spot, the glove's finishing move would trigger. Just as he latched onto the exact point, Seraphina shrieked a piercing cry. Yet the system only showed a 36% charge, which left Ceres puzzled. Even her chest wasn't the vital point? Suddenly, he realized her hand was too close. At that distance, she could easily strike his artery. But to his surprise, Seraphina kicked him away instead. She quickly widened the distance, giving him no chance to touch her again. Seeing this, Ceres decided to test the current power level of his glove. Without hesitation, he released a shockwave. The attack spread wider than before, and Seraphina immediately summoned her vines to block. But even when she altered the attack's trajectory, the sheer power of the blast still tore straight through the cathedral walls. As the explosion scattered the poisonous mist, Ceres exhaled in relief. His head was finally clear again. Seraphina sneered, "You actually helped me. If I hadn't absorbed your blood earlier, that blast might have injured me." Hearing that, Saris narrowed his eyes. If he wanted to end this fight, he had to find her weak spot fast. But scanning her entire body, he couldn't figure out which part would trigger the finishing move. Then it hit him. She could have attacked him with her hands, yet she used her foot instead. And the first time they met, she'd also blocked him with her toes. That meant her weak point was most likely her hands. Seeing Saris frozen in thought, Seraphina taunted, "Good. Stay still like that, and I'll drain every drop of your blood." Just then, Lilia suddenly appeared beside them. "Lady Seraphina, you're gonna eat Saris? Didn't you say you'd only seal me inside the cathedral? That if she failed to cure me, I'd simply spend the rest of my life here?" Seraphina bristled with displeasure and snapped at Lilia to step back. But when Lilia invoked the church law forbidding harm to living beings, Seraphina switched tactics and began to brainwash. If she ate him, she would gain the power to force everyone into submission. "When I sit on the supreme throne, you'll be the head of this branch. So just close your mouth and obey," she added. Lilia, however, grabbed Saris and urged him to leave, saying she would report the matter to the High Pontiff. That statement enraged Seraphina completely. She sneered, "If you're so stubborn, I don't mind devouring you both." As a vine's claw lunged for Lilia, Saris reacted and dashed forward, shoving her out of harm's way. Unfortunately, he was impaled by the vine in the process. Seraphina's lips curled in a cold smile. She thought his body was reaching its limit. Saris gritted his teeth and propped himself up, feeling that even standing was a tremendous effort. At that moment, a foot wrapped in a green aura pressed against him. Lilia was casting an emergency spell to staunch the bleeding and explained quietly, "It's only a stopgap, not true healing. More like a stimulant. It keeps you lucid briefly, but if overused, the magic seeps into the blood and numbs the body. If that happens, you'll be at others' mercy. It's very dangerous." Realizing the situation, Saris grabbed Lilia's hand and told her to pour all her magic into him. But Seraphina's vines moved faster, coiling around Lilia in an instant. "You'll watch him die right before your eyes," Seraphina hissed. After draining a portion of his blood, Seraphina suddenly felt dizzy and unstable. Saris seized the chance, using the shockwave's recoil to launch himself straight toward her. Under Seraphina's stunned gaze, he interlocked his fingers tightly with hers. As he gripped down, the charge level surged to 100%. Seraphina screamed, her shriek piercing the air. The system interface flashed, charge 100%. Finishing move unlocked. Seraphina's true form was revealed, a Goyelia man-eater bloom, with all her sensitive nerves located in her hands. The next instant, she lost control and released Lilia. The tips of her vines sprayed out streams of strange fluid. But to Saris's surprise, Seraphina began to mutate. She transformed into her monstrous form and lunged forward, jaws wide to bite off his head. Saris didn't hesitate. He triggered the glove's ultimate move. With a thunderous blast, Seraphina was engulfed by a golden shockwave. The explosion shattered the cathedral walls into rubble. As Seraphina's figure faded into light, Lilia could only stare, utterly speechless. Saris looked down at his system panel, a chill running through him. His lifespan had only increased by 34 days. Yet at the same time, a new message appeared. Homestead function unlocked. Tame beast skills available. When Lilia asked if the high priestess had been killed, Saris motioned for her to look at the carnivorous flower on the ground, explaining that Seraphina had merely reverted to her original form. Hearing that, Lilia thoughtfully brushed her fingers across the petals. But in the next instant, she was startled to see Saris collapse straight into her lap. After checking him, she realized he had exhausted far too much energy in battle. If he didn't replenish it soon, he could die. Lilia gently laid him on the floor, then lifted her glowing foot and began channeling her healing magic. In the mindscape, Saris felt a soothing warmth flooding through his body. Familiar with Lilia's healing method, he instinctively followed her guidance. Little did he know, in the real world, he was actually clinging to her leg, biting down on her foot. The strange sensation made Lilia's face flush, but she quickly realized it was her own impure thoughts. If she didn't calm her emotions, her evolution magic would fail. She clenched her robes tightly and whispered the holy doctrine under her breath. At last, when Saris opened his eyes, Lilia exhaled deeply in relief. But suddenly, a surge of energy erupted from her body. Shocked, she guessed that while healing Saris, her evolution magic had absorbed a massive amount of energy. Smiling faintly, she told him he could come to her anytime for treatment, even for the smallest scratch. Saris was left dumbfounded, wondering if she had just turned him into her personal XP source. As they stepped out of the cathedral, Vice President Charlton and Dice appeared before them. Charlton explained he was here to discuss cooperation with the Holy Church, but since Seraphina had reverted to her original form, Lilia informed him that talks would have to wait until a new high priestess was chosen. Seeing the situation, Charlton decided not to press further. He instructed Dice to drive Saris home and tell him about the strange events the guild had encountered lately. Soon, Dice revealed that a mysterious beast had infiltrated the city, one that specifically targeted heroes. Stranger still, every victim had been physically castrated, their bodies carved with 3 demonic words that read, "Not you." It seemed the creature was searching for someone. Hearing that, Saris instinctively tightened his legs, a chill running down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was the target. To prevent public panic, the guild assigned an S-rank hero from District K to serve as the lead investigator. Meanwhile, back at Saris's house, Shadiel quietly climbed through the window. When Yag questioned her, she sighed and explained that the streets were swarming with hero patrols. Escaping was impossible. Yag frowned in annoyance. "Oh great, don't tell me you're planning to stay here too?" Shadiel crossed her arms proudly. "As if. I don't want anything to do with that man. But if we're found, we'll all be killed." Relieved, Yag smirked and said she could disguise herself with transformation magic to look human, so no one would notice her. You, on the other hand, better pray you find somewhere safe to hide. That made Shadiel pause. Her magic could change others' faces, but not her own. She'd need a safe place to lie low. Suddenly, she coughed up a mouthful of blood. Her body collapsed to the floor with a dull thud. Yag assumed she was faking it just to stay. But Shadiel knew the truth. Though she'd escaped the dungeon through teleportation, the damage from Sadatha's blast had never fully healed. Her injuries were flaring up again. While Yag was still confused, voices echoed outside. Saris and someone else had returned. Muttering in frustration, Yag lifted Shadiel in her arms. "You really know how to cause trouble, don't you?" After hiding Shadiel safely, she sat down obediently in the living room, pretending nothing had happened as she waited for Saris to open the door. But when Dice followed closely behind and stepped into the house, Yag's expression immediately darkened. "Ugh, not her again. I need to find a way to make that woman leave the master on her own." To Dice, however, this was her second chance. Last time, she'd lost her composure and hadn't even made it past the front door. This time, she was determined to learn more about Saris, especially whether that sister of his was real, and more importantly, if he was single. Once everyone sat down, Dice began explaining that the vampire beast had appeared because the ancient dragon beggar was about to awaken. Most of the guild's main force had been dispatched to evacuate nearby villagers, giving the beast a perfect opportunity to slip into the city. Midway through her explanation, Dice suddenly blushed. "All right, there's something important I forgot last time." She pulled out a sheet of paper and handed it to Saris with a sweet smile. "As the vice president's secretary, it's my duty to understand our team members' personal habits and preferences. Please fill this out for me." In truth, the form was completely made up by her. It contained questions not only about romantic history, but also dating preferences, ideal partners, and other embarrassingly private topics. Seeing the contents, Saris blinked. "Wait, I have to fill all of this?" Dice nodded earnestly. "Of course. It's part of the promotion process for squad captains. Every field must be completed seriously." As Saris began to write, Dice's lips curled into a sly smile. "Once I have this form, he'll be closer to me than to Yag. Then I'll be the one he trusts the most." But suddenly, a faint cough came from the bedroom. Dice looked up curiously. Is someone else living here?" Saris froze. He had no idea Shadiel was still in the house. He quickly stood up and headed for the bedroom. Just as he reached the door, Shadiel whispered urgently, "Close the door." Now, from her perspective, that woman outside had already sensed something. To prevent drawing the hero's attention, Shadiel made up her mind. She would eliminate the threat before it spread. When Saris explained that the woman couldn't be killed, Shadiel immediately asked, "Why are you panicking? Is she really that important to you?" Meanwhile, when Dice asked who was speaking in the bedroom, Yog calmly replied, "Of course. It's my master's second favorite little sister." Dice froze. So there was already another sister? That would make her the third. Even though Saris tried to explain he'd send Dice away after finishing the form, Shadiel still smacked him on the head. Hearing the scream, Dice asked if she should go help, but Yog said flatly, "Better not. That second sister likes to bite. Master can handle it himself." As Saris was kicked out of the bedroom by Shadiel, he quickly finished filling out the form and handed it to Dice, asking her to deliver it to the guild as soon as possible. Daze blushed again after getting what she wanted. Hearing about a newly opened restaurant, she shyly asked if she could go there with Saris. But to Yog, that sounded like pure provocation. She instantly grabbed a cookie from the table, placed it against her chest, and said teasingly, "My dear brother, it's feeding time now, isn't it?" Before Saris could react, Yog pushed his head down. It was a cookie she made herself. If he didn't finish it, she wouldn't let go. The scene left Daze completely stunned. What kind of bizarre feeding ritual was this? To her disbelief, after he finished one, Yog picked up another and ordered him to clean the whole plate. Finally, Daze couldn't take it anymore and asked, "Saris, do you always eat like this?" Yog quickly cut in, "Of course. We do this every day. It's our special feeding time, arranged by my brother himself. If you can't stand it, you're free to leave." Taking a full emotional hit, Daze puffed her cheeks and got up to leave. But right then, another girl's voice came from outside. "Excuse me, is this Saris's house?" Yog's hostility spiked immediately. "Another woman? Really?" Outside, Diley grew impatient and told the butler to open the door. With a sharp crack, the doorknob shattered in her hand. Two strangers stepped inside. Saris's first reaction wasn't to ask who they were, but to demand compensation for his custom-made door that cost 100 silver coins. The visitor calmly handed him a note, offering 1,000 gold coins as compensation. Seeing that, Saris reluctantly accepted the apology and asked why they had come looking for him. To everyone's surprise, Diley opened her palm with a grin. 500,000 gold coins, spend 2.5 years training with me. Deal? In that instant, Saris's eyes were filled with the glitter of endless gold. Yog pouted beside him, unable to understand why every woman kept clinging to her master. Daze suddenly raised her hand. "Saris, don't agree. These two must be from District K." But Diley simply admitted it and shot back. "Annie, do you have a problem with District K?" The word Annie froze the air. Daze's tone turned sharp, and the two women launched into a fierce verbal duel. Meanwhile, Daphne received a phone call. The moment she learned her sister Diley had gone to Saris's house, she handed her work to a subordinate. Then, with one powerful leap, she soared into the sky. She wouldn't let Diley steal anything from her again. Back at the house, Diley had the upper hand. After all, 500,000 gold coins was a price even the Z-Zone Guild couldn't afford. Saris couldn't help but wonder, why would someone offer him such an outrageous sum for no reason? Seeing the doubt in his eyes, Diley explained softly, "Once you agree, just tell me, how did you make my sister break her sacred rule of never working with anyone?" Diley smirked. "Once it's done, I'll have you on TV and spread the story all over Syrian City. Let's see how my stubborn sister keeps her pride then." Saris let out a cold chuckle. "So that's your plan?" "Sorry, I refuse." Diley snapped. 500,000 gold coins. That's more than you'll ever earn in your life. And you're turning it down? What she didn't know was that Saris had already promised Daphne never to reveal anything about the underground city. To Diley, though, promises meant nothing when weighed against money. Just as she was about to raise her offer to a full 1,000,000 gold, a furious voice came from behind her. "You brat. Stay the hell away from Saris." Daphne charged forward, her fist blazing with power. Yet the mighty blow was caught midair by the butler's single hand. "Miss, that's too much," he warned calmly. But Daphne glared at him, clearly not in the mood for advice. Watching the scene, Daze gasped. Wasn't that Daphne, the S-rank hero from District K? She actually seemed to care about Saris. Diley sneered, "Wow sis, you came running all this way." Don't tell me you don't trust your partner? Realizing she was trying to stir trouble, Saris quickly gestured with his hands, silently mouthing, "I didn't say a thing." Daphne's anger eased, her respect for him deepening. So he really is the kind of man who won't sell out, even for gold, she thought. Daphne's gaze shifted to her sister, and a cold smirk curved her lips. "My dear little sister, some things you just don't have. No matter how much you grow, they'll always be fake." Dali forced herself to stay calm. "What nonsense are you talking about? She's always been this size." Flustered and fuming, she stormed off with the butler in tow. Yet deep down, she was certain those two were hiding something. No matter what it took, she would uncover their secret. Daphne turned back to Saris. "If Dali shows up again, just throw her out. Don't waste your breath on her." But before she could leave, a report came in. There was a sighting of a vampiric beast in District Y. With no time to waste, Daphne hurried out, and Days soon followed her lead. The moment the door closed, a panicked voice came from the bedroom. "Master, hurry! Shadiel, something's wrong with her." Shadiel's body temperature had plummeted. She was already unconscious. The only cure would be high-grade restorative herbs from the underground city. Only they could restore her body strength. Hearing Yog's desperate tone, Saris suddenly remembered. His own blood had healing properties. Without hesitation, he sliced open his palm and fed her his blood. But the moment the crimson drops fell, Yog's monster instincts awoke. The scent was too rich, too intoxicating to resist. Slowly, Shadiel opened her eyes. The first thing she did was grab Saris's hand and greedily drink his blood. Before he could react, Yog threw herself at him too. "Master, she wants him too." The two girls reveled in the intoxicating warmth of his blood. Meanwhile, far away in another city, a colossal hand burst out of the ground. A gigantic figure rose from beneath the earth. The heroes nearby gasped. Just as predicted, the ancient dragon Bigelga had awakened. But to everyone's surprise, the dragon suddenly turned, as if drawn by a scent, and flew toward the distance. The heroes paled. That direction led straight to the hero guild headquarters. Moments later, the blaring alarm cut through the air, interrupting Yog and Shadiel's feeding. The broadcast ordered all citizens to evacuate. The dragon Bigelga had awakened and would reach the city in 10 days. Only the Blade Dragon's breath of judgment could stop it. The Hero Guild summoned all warriors. They had 3 hours to reach headquarters 160 kilometers away or be demoted or expelled. To avoid expulsion, Saris rushed to the local branch to request transport. But he was told that even as a captain, he had no authorization if traveling alone. Unless he could recruit teammates on the spot, he'd have to squeeze into another team's vehicle, a scene that didn't go unnoticed. A cheerful voice called out, "Hey, I'm Eileen, captain of Squad 14. You can ride with us." Relieved, Saris thanked her and introduced himself. But the moment Eileen heard he was an F-rank hero leading Squad 15, her expression changed instantly. She pulled her hand back and turned away. "Forget what I said. An F-rank hero doesn't deserve to talk to me." Just then, a familiar voice rang out. "I'll join Squad 15. It was Bella, finally recovered and standing strong. Saris opened his mouth to speak, but she pouted. "You forgot about me, didn't you? Otherwise, why didn't you come see me?" Then she softened with a smile. "Never mind. You're a captain now. Must be busy." With Bella joining, Saris was called to the registration room to file the paperwork. Eileen sneered. "Little girl, following an F-rank loser won't get you anywhere. Why not join my squad instead?" Another voice joined in. "Yeah, Bella, long time no see." It was Tyr, the man who secretly adored her. Now, an A-rank captain from the Keelan Society, he smirked. "I got top-tier gear now. Bella, come join my team. Don't waste your time with that weakling."